Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So my mom called me about 30 minutes ago, and you want to know what she said?
What's that?
She goes, "Are you on the air?" I was like, "Do you not know what time my show starts?" My own mom does not know what time my show starts.
She's just making sure, double checking.
I mean, I don't want to call her out. I love her. I don't want to call her out. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, I know it's 2 o'clock, and we've been doing this show now for what, 8 years?
It's okay, my mom doesn't listen either.
Really?
Yeah.
Does your mom know what time the show is?
Probably not, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Does your mom know who the coach of the Titans is?
No, probably. I doubt it.
Does your mom know who Ryan Tannehill is?
Maybe. She does watch the games, actually.
So, like, my mom kind of pokes her head in sometimes during the games.
She'll watch the game, yeah.
My mom actually said to me yesterday, and I promise we'll start on real stuff here in 1 second. My mom said to me yesterday, she was like, "So I saw Bill Belichick's getting fired." I said, "Wait a minute, what?" I was like, "Where'd you get that from?" Like, I mean, you're right, but like, what? Like, she goes, "Oh, it was on the bottom of Good Morning America this morning, and she saw that Bill Belichick's getting fired."
My aunt's a big Ravens fan, so sometimes, she has a little Raven nugget here or there.
So, I hate that for your aunt, but she probably enjoys her Sundays a lot more.
Well, yeah, they're from Baltimore, so
okay, it's okay.
She gets an excuse.
Passable. So last night, I was sitting on the couch. It's a Wednesday night. No hockey, no football. I'm like, what do I watch? What's on TV? In fact, it was such a boring TV day that I did actually watch the first period of Buffalo versus Colorado last night, and it was atrocious. Oh, my goodness. But I was sitting there, and because Will Levis had been asked about it at his press conference yesterday about had he watched the Hard Knocks episode of the Dolphins, I was like, Dolphins Hard Knocks. Let's watch the episode of Hard Knocks on the Dolphins the week that they prepare for the Titans and the game with which they absolutely blew it after the Titans tried to give them the game on Monday Night Football. And it was a waste of 45 minutes of my life. But I do know a lot more now about Alec Ingold and Duke Riley and Mike McDaniel and all that. But there was one particular thing that stood out. And we have to remember that Hard Knocks is selective with what they show and what they don't show, and that the teams control the content. So what we saw from the Dolphins is what the Dolphins decided to allow us to see. So there could be more to this. But my biggest takeaway last night, watching the Dolphins coaching staff go over the game plan for the Titans, is they were worried about one guy, Derrick Henry. I know Derrick Henry's not breaking off the 80-yarders anymore. I know he's not the old Derrick. I know. He's not going to go out there and run for 224 yards on Sunday. I assume he will not. Whether or not he still can, that's a different discussion. The Titans have no offensive line and no real passing threats. So how in the world would Derrick Henry be able to run for 225? But again, when I watched it, the one thing that the Dolphin coaching staff on the defense side of the ball, McDaniel, the head coach, the one thing they kept talking about was Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry. In between their usage of the F word, which was too much for even me. I mean, on that episode of Hard Knocks, it was all about Derrick Henry. Here are some examples. This is Mike McDaniel when sitting down with the team to start the game plan for the week on Hard Knocks.
Today we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, okay? All week, these dudes are getting ready on national television to, in their mind, you guys up physically. I'm just telling you, you watch tape over a couple year span, and they are trying to be bullies, okay? There's that extra added, December, January type football that these guys lean into. Their offense, it's coming. They're going to run off the ball. These uniforms are sick, by the way. Understand this. They are trying to get this dude on the cracker place. I'm just telling you, if you allow him to give you a stiff arm, you'll go viral. I'm just telling you. Okay? But this is a team defense. Okay? And that's how you play a team like this.
Okay. This is a tough physical bully ball team, and we have to worry about Derrick Henry. All of us. It's team defense. I'm just telling you, if he puts that stiff arm on you, you're going viral. No talk about Levis. No talk about Hopkins. No talk about... This is Ryan Slowick, the linebacker coach, on Hard Knocks with Derrick Henry.
Obviously, their run game or their offense basically goes through Derrick Henry. He is a big running back who is a stiff arm type of guy, and he's one cut trying to get the ball on the edge. He does not want to slow his feet. He does not want to cut back. He wants a clear running lane and be able to go get vertical. Make this guy slow his feet, bottle his ass up, make him indecisive with it. In this game, we have the 3 motherfucker rule. Every time that guy touches the football, there's 3 motherfuckers around about to hit him, okay?
Okay, every time that guy touches the ball, 3 dudes get there. This kind of reminds me of when Mike Tomlin and the Steelers were getting ready to play the Titans, and the players that Tomlin talked about were Henry, Hopkins, and Okonkwo. It's like he doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody except for Henry and Hopkins. The Dolphins apparently didn't seem to care about anybody except for Henry, and this was on the side at practice, Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio talking about the Titans.
Numbers don't really do it justice. This is a team that can you up if you're not ready. And then all of a sudden it's the second quarter and you're 75 yards, like, holy shit, you can't recover.
They ran it 42 times last week for 180.
Yeah, so like, dude. But I was encouraged. Duke had been studying the center and told me when he likes to cut.
Duke is linebacker Duke Riley.
I decided to leave that in there at the end, that little shot of Brewer. I couldn't help myself, right? It's like, we're so worried about their running game, but Duke says he's studied up on the center, and the center makes it obvious when he tries to. Another mark against Aaron Brewer. But so again, all the Dolphins talked about, or at least all that we saw the Dolphins talk about, was Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry. The 3 MFer rule that the Dolphins have. Every time he touches the ball, 3 people need to go tackle him. Why is this important? It's important because for all of you out there that are ready to get rid of Derrick Henry, you do not realize the impact that he has on Will Levis. Every second that every coach, whether in this case it's McDaniel or Fangio or Slowick or whomever, every second that they spend worrying about Derrick Henry, every moment in the team meetings that they talk about Derrick Henry, they're not talking about Will Levis. It's the same time that they aren't dedicating to using confusing coverages for a rookie quarterback. Every time a linebacker worries about whether or not Derrick Henry is going to give him a stiff arm is the exact same time that they are not talking about how they're going to blitz to scare the quarterback. That's why. I know a lot of you want to see Tajay Spears run the ball all the time. Out with the old, in with the new. That's what you want. I get it. But they're not going to dedicate an entire defensive game plan to Tajay Spears. So while I know you guys think Derrick's not the same Derrick, and I'll agree with you, we haven't had the 68-yard touchdown runs. Derrick gets over 100 yards, and it's a miracle, I think in large part because of the line in front of him. But I think there are times where there's a little bit of a hole that I'm like, Derrick would have, the old Derrick would have been able to squeeze through that and run it up. But that doesn't take away what Derrick Henry means to Will Levis and the development of Will Levis and how defenses prepare for the Titans and the game plans that they use against Will Levis. Derrick Henry is the leader on offense, and moving on from him at the end of the year when Will Levis has not popped yet as a franchise quarterback would be a mistake. Why would I kick out the number 1 leader of my team? Why would I kick out the single most accomplished guy that would then set the example, and I think we can all agree sets a great example, for all the younger guys, offense, defense, regardless, that come after him. If a guy gets drafted to the Titans and they walk into the facility and Derrick Henry's walking around, there is, even though they wouldn't say it, publicly, there is dude, that's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry knows my name. There's almost some hero worship there, which means they see how Derrick does things, and then they're going to try to do them the same way. And since Derrick Henry does everything right, that's the kind of example that you want for your team. He's also not only the number one leader of the team and the most accomplished guy, but he's the guy who clearly puts the most fear into opposing teams. He's going to run for 1,100 yards this year with no offensive line, a bad defense, which means they have to throw the whole time, and they have no passing game. So why would I kick him out when I don't have to? Why would I move on from Derrick Henry when, again, Derrick Henry is going to go into free agency, and there are going to be some teams that just, we can't win with a running back. We don't need a running back. Oh, no, we don't. You going to go in there and find a better running back than Derrick Henry? You're going to go into free agency and find a guy who checks as many boxes as Derrick Henry does to replace Derrick Henry. You know you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to find a better leader than Derrick Henry. You're not going to find a running back that will take the entire attention away from the opposing coaching staff so that your young quarterback can operate without the pressure of having one coordinator scheming to try to light him up. This reminds me of Baker Mayfield's second year. Remember, Baker was Rookie of the Year, and the Browns won some games, and they elevated Freddie Kitchens to head coach, and they signed Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, and it was the Baker show. They thought he was a franchise quarterback. And I kept saying that entire offseason, Dean Pease is going to get 6 months to be able to go over the tape and show Baker something he hasn't seen before. And if I have to take who the 6 months is going to benefit, Dean Pease or Baker Mayfield, I'll take Dean Pease. And Dean Pease kicked his ass. Why would you do that to Levis? Why would you do that? There's no reason. Derrick Henry returning to the Titans next year only benefits Will Levis. In fact, it may only benefit Tajay Spears. So for the boo-hoo Derrick crew out there, just know this. We saw inside the Dolphins, or whatever it was the Dolphins wanted us to see, and it was all Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry. If there's no Derrick Henry, everybody's going to be spending their time on Will Levis. Ian, what do you think a team getting ready to play the Carolina Panthers sits there and talks about when they're getting ready to play them on offense?
Shoof. Panthers offense is terrible, but I guess limit Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
Yeah.
So Bryce Young has the whole spotlight on him. Why do that to Will Levis? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, how practical is it that the Titans keep Derrick Henry? I don't think it would be difficult for them to do. But I do think, I get the feeling that there is somebody that probably doesn't want to keep Derrick Henry. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You get any free advice when people see on the street on who you should pick?
Oh, all the time. You know, I get everything from who to pick, who to trade back to, who to trade, you know, who not to trade, you know. So without question is a question about Derrick. You know, I was at an event and I was taking a picture, and you know, I have my arm around the lady and take a picture, and she leans in, "You better not trade Derrick." And she scared the hell out of me because it came from like a motherly, authoritative place, and I was just like, "Yes, ma'am," you know.
That was Rand Carthon before the draft. So let me say this, and this is complete conjecture. It is my opinion. But as much as I think the Titans need to keep Derrick Henry next year, and again, I don't think they should pay Derrick Henry the $12.5 million that he averaged in this last contract. And I think the Titans should work out a deal with Derrick Henry. I think they should go to him. I have said 1 year, $10 million. And the reason, and I don't think that Derrick Henry would get $10 million on the market. And you're going to say, well, Jared, why would you overpay Derrick Henry? And the reason I would overpay Derrick Henry is because Derrick Henry still has to be treated like he's one of the best players on this team. Because, again, that's what I'm buying. I'm buying that every team, before they get to play the Titans until Will Levis pops, which you would like to see happen in year 2, that before all that happens, that everybody is like Mike McDaniel on Hard Knocks, and they're inside the laboratory saying, Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry. I also want Derrick Henry to feel like he's still respected as one of the great players on this team, and I want the team to still have the understanding that Derrick Henry is still the man and he's not just some old pawpaw that's playing out the strings because the owner likes seeing him in a Titans helmet. But I don't think Rand Carthon's going to want to keep Derrick Henry, and I'll tell you why. Number one, they already shopped him in the offseason. And number two, Mike Florio reported that at the trade deadline, after Bayer was shipped out for a bag of footballs, Mike Vrabel was the one who said no on Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins. My guess is Rand probably would have traded them for footballs too, because that's what happens with a young general manager who thinks they're going to be able to be given the time to go through a full rebuild. This is what Florio said a couple of weeks ago, but after the trade deadline, about how Vrabel was the one who shut down the idea of Henry and Hopkins.
I know he won the power struggle with John Robinson, but there are still maybe some organizational things he's not thrilled about. Earlier this year, before the trade deadline, when there was talk about maybe moving a Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins, Vrabel didn't want to have anything to do with a rebuild or a reset.
So Vrabel didn't want anything to do with that. And go back to Monday night's game. Boy, I tell you, it was really important that they didn't trade DeAndre Hopkins at the trade deadline. I mean, maybe that 4th round pick that you guys want, maybe it's too bad you won't get that. But I think it was pretty good for the confidence in Will Levis, for the development of Will Levis, for that DeAndre Hopkins is on this football team. And I feel the same way about Derrick Henry. But again, that's the difference between the coach who's going to go into these games and try to win them, and he's thinking about, I need DeAndre Hopkins to win these games, I need Derrick Henry to win these games, and a general manager who thinks he's getting a full chance to rebuild. And he might. But usually guys think, oh, no, I'm good for a couple of years. And again, the NFL stands for not for long. And there's this sense of, my team, my players, my guys, my blah, blah, blah. And I'll say this for the idea of Rand Carthon wanting to load up on draft picks in order to be able to draft a bunch of young players and get his young players in there and everything else, is it sounds great to get all of these young guys and all of these picks and everything else. But if you don't get to use them, what's the point? And if you keep getting picks for the future, but you keep putting Jalen Duncan out there so you don't win, you're not going to get to use these picks. And now, considering that Derrick Henry is not under contract for next year, if Derrick Henry walks away and goes to another team, you don't get anything for Derrick Henry. So it's great to get all those draft picks that you guys love to talk about. And again, if we're talking about 1st and 2nd round picks, that's different than the bag of footballs that they got for Kevin Byard. But if you let Derrick Henry walk away in free agency, it's going to put more pressure on what will be a developing offensive line next year with probably 3 to 4 new faces. I hope 4, but probably 3 new faces. And you're going to be putting more pressure on Levis and putting more pressure on Spears. And again, is that a good idea to take the linchpin of the organization out of the mix? But then again, when it comes to what Rand Carthon has done, we don't know because A, Rand Carthon never talks, and B, when he does talk, he doesn't tell the truth. So it's hard for us to be able to really, truly know what he wants to do. I mean, are you going to take Derrick Henry out the way you took out Kevin Byard? Again, I just don't think that's very smart. But that's what he did on defense. And I cannot imagine that this upcoming situation will be any different because as long as Derrick Henry is on the team, and again, this is kind of an insecurity thing, and I know Rand said that he doesn't have an ego, but I find it hard to believe in an industry as cutthroat as football that these guys don't have some sort of an ego. It's never going to be his team as long as Derrick Henry's out there. Now, Derrick Henry's going to have a reduced role, and, it's not going to be the same as the way they went into this season thinking it was going to be. And again, the whole hope for Derrick Henry coming back next year is that it helps Will Levis pop into a franchise quarterback. By this time next year, we should have a pretty good feeling as to whether or not Will Levis is going to be the guy or not. This time this year, there's no way to know. Vince Young was the rookie of the year. RG3 was rookie of the year. But year 2 is where these guys really start to become Brock Purdy or where they start to become Zach Wilson. So once the organization flips over and it goes to Levis's team, which again should happen next year, Derrick Henry's on a 1-year, $10 million deal. You start to fade Derrick Henry out. By this time next year, teams will be game planning against Levis. And then at the end of that season is when you move on. But as far as the immediate future, I am not taking Derrick Henry away from Will Levis. And I'm not doing that to Will Levis. They have got to do everything in their power to set Will Levis up to have success. And if they don't do that, and he fails, Ian, guess what happens?
You get fired.
They get fired. Like, I know it's great. Again, my picks, my team, my players, if this one pick doesn't work, you're fired. Because you won't be very good, and when you're not very good, you get fired. It's as simple as that. Unless they pull a rabbit out of their ass like Brock Purdy in the 7th round. How do you make up for lighting 4 first-round draft choices on fire? You hit on Mr. Irrelevant. Good luck to them on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in, so we will get to you on this. And while I'm talking about bringing Henry back, there's also somebody else I wouldn't be opposed to bringing back either, but it's infinitely more complicated. We'll touch on that. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Make your silly underdog picks for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at theGameNashville.com or the 1025 The Game app. Silly Underdog Picks is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. And 1025 The Game is teamed up with Mookie Betts AIM Foundation to help underprivileged members of our community. You can email bids in now at enteryourbids@gmail.com. They've got 2 packages. The family package, which includes Mookie Betts t-shirts, hats, miniature Dodger baseball bats, and Mookie Betts autographed baseballs, or the game day package that includes a $500 Southwest gift card, Mookie Betts jerseys, Dodgers and Dad Gang hats, and 2 tickets to a Dodgers game in Los Angeles and a photo op with the man himself, Mookie Betts. Email bids in now at enteryourbids@gmail.com. Bids close at 5 p.m. today.
Harold said it was a little bit like an old Titans win, one where nobody was expecting you guys to come and you kind of pulled one out.
Yeah, definitely. It was, just good energy. It was good to have that energy back. Guys were just excited. It was a great win for us and great win to build off of.
That was Derrick Henry on Monday night, and a lot of people want to weigh in. Again, I watched Hard Knocks. I wasted an hour of my life I'll never get back. I watched Hard Knocks, the Dolphins' Hard Knocks, and I watched all their coaches spend all this time about Henry. And I'm like, if you get rid of Derrick Henry at the end of the year, all those meetings are going to be about Will Levis. And you're better off having all those meetings about Derrick Henry so that Will Levis can just do his thing. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We got a couple of these. One texter says, please don't start with Rand doesn't want Derrick Henry. I can feel it coming. Somebody else said, Rand Carthon talked about how much he loved Henry. Don't act like Carthon doesn't like Henry and doesn't want him around. Again, all I can tell you is what's been reported by people who, again, have credibility in NFL circles. One is Mike Silver, who at the Combine said the Titans were shopping Derrick Henry. And the idea that Rand Carthon says that report's not true is ridiculous. My guess is the Titans approached another team about Derrick Henry, whether it was to gauge interest or whether it was to actually trade him, I don't know. But they approached a team about Derrick Henry, and then that team, when trying to get information at the Combine out of Mike Silver, offered up Titans information because why would they need that? Like, why would they, no skin off the commander's ass to say, oh, yeah, the Titans called us about Derrick Henry. And then Mike Florio last week, or whenever it was, said that at the deadline, Vrabel's the one who put his foot down and said no on Henry and Hopkins. So what am I supposed to believe? So I'm just going to tell you. And again, the Titans, if they do this, they have a perfectly good older player who is aging and is not the same. Are they going to do this like they did Ben Jones? One texter texts in and says, Jared, are you going to issue an apology for that profanity Monday? That language was disgusting. What are they talking about?
Monday?
What'd I say Monday?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Whatever. Texter says, could the Titans not give Derrick Henry a 2-year deal for $5 million per year, then give him a $10 million signing bonus to not affect the cap? That way it's a $20 million deal, but not all again. Dude, cap doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. They gave DeAndre Hopkins, how much money did they give DeAndre Hopkins? Like $13 million. And then they used void years and all kinds of fakakta stuff, and it's a $3 million cap hit. So whatever way they want to go about, putting Derrick Henry under contract for again, $10 million of Amy's money goes to Derrick Henry's checking account. That is all I care about, one way or another. I don't care how you structure it. I don't care how you finagle it for the cap because the cap's not real and the Titans can spend however much money they want to spend. I don't care about any of that. Just $10 million of Amy's money to Derrick Henry one way or another. And I don't want a 2-year deal because if I do a 2-year deal, then it's like, okay, now you're committed. Like, I don't want to have to cut Derrick Henry. I just want it to be a 1-year deal. And we'll see how Levis progresses. And at the end of next year, Henry will be up, Hopkins will be up, and then, we can worry about 2 years from now when we cross that bridge. Tim says Henry is worth his weight in gold and should be back even if it takes a tag. The morning show thinks he is washed, and I can't for the life of me figure it out. I can't tell you what to think about the morning show. I mean, I don't know what they said or what they didn't say about Derrick Henry. Again, the idea that Tajay Spears is going to be Derrick Henry. I remember when I was in the 9th grade, and the Titans were coming off of 2 seasons that were incredibly successful. 2002, they went to the AFC Championship game. They started 1-4. They ended up 11-5. They went to the AFC Championship game, and were it not for some Craig Aukerman-like special teams, they may have had a chance to win that game against the Raiders. But give credit where credit's due. Oakland was incredibly hard to win back then. Rich Gannon was league MVP. They had Jerry Rice and Tim Brown. So you get to the AFC title game. The next year, you get to the divisional round of the playoffs. You lose to Brady and the Patriots in a close game, and Steve McNair wins the league MVP. They go to Eddie George and they say, Eddie, we need you to take a pay cut. Chris Brown was starting to ascend at that point. And they go to Eddie George and they say, hey, we need you to take a pay cut. And Eddie George says no. And the amount of money that Eddie George signed with the Cowboys for is the amount of money that the Titans were looking to pay Eddie. And as Floyd has said on this show many times, he told Eddie George, hey, we are not going to pay you. We are not going to expect you to be the old Eddie George. We want what Eddie George is now. If somebody else signs you, they're going to want the old Eddie George. But it didn't matter. Again, it was a money thing. It was a respect thing. So when I see this thing with Tajay Spears where people get excited and they want to move on to Spears, I'm like, I've already lived this. I've lived this with Chris Brown. And sure, Chris Brown had a 1,000-yard season, but guess what? He got hurt a lot. And the next year, with the same cast returning, except for Eddie George, the Titans sucked. So I've already been through this before. What I envision is more like what happened to the Steelers when Ben was in his second year and Jerome Bettis was starting to kind of fade out and Willie Parker was starting to fade in. And that's what I'm looking for here. Again, I don't know what Robbie and Joe said. I think they probably just look at it like, oh yeah, Spears can do it. And I think the Titans might be thinking that. I'm worried the Titans are thinking that about Jalen Duncan. That they're thinking like, oh, Jalen Duncan can do it. He can play left tackle. And then you're going to start next year with Jalen Duncan at left tackle, and you're going to get Levis killed. And then the Titans probably aren't going to invest in backup quarterback, even though the league is proving that you've got to have a backup quarterback. You might need to have two quarterbacks nowadays. And the Titans will probably not, and Malik will be the backup, and Levis will, and you see what I'm saying? Texter says, Derrick Henry needs to stay a Titan. Also, Vrabel needs to stay the head coach with Tim Kelly as OC. Vrabel had a top 10 offense with A.J. Brown, Henry, Corey Davis, etc. Also had Arthur Smith. Upgrade at receiver and offensive line this offseason and give the staff a chance. Did the staff not have a chance last year? Did the staff not have a chance this year? Why do I have to give everybody 100 chances? This is the NFL, babe. If you can't get it figured out, you will be fired. Unbelievable. Texter says, is Derrick still the focal point of the Titans roster? Ian, can you give me Mike McDaniel at the beginning of the week talking to the Miami Dolphins? We already played this hour, but we'll play it again. Talking to the Miami Dolphins. And again, your question in the text line was, is Derrick Henry still the focal point of the Titans roster? This is the team that you just played's head coach.
Today we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, okay? All week, these dudes are getting ready on national television to, in their mind, you guys up physically. I'm just telling you, you watch tape over a couple year span, and they are trying to be bullies, okay? There's that extra added, December, January type football that these guys lean into. Their offense, it's coming. They're going to run off the ball. These uniforms are sick, by the way. Understand this. They are trying to get this dude on the cracker place. I'm just telling you, if you allow him to give you a stiff arm, you'll go viral. I'm just telling you. Okay? But this is a team defense, okay? And that's how you play a team like this.
Okay. So, again, the question in the text line was, is Derrick the focal point of the Titans roster? He may not be to you, but he is to the coach that you just played.
That stiff arm still gets the opposition's attention.
It gets the opposition's attention.
Yeah, you don't want to be posterized by Henry.
But also, what I thought was hilarious was, you know how we get mad at the Titans sometimes for obvious run situations where they run it with the personnel and everything else, and we're sitting there and it's like, oh God, why did they choose to run it on that play? Like, what? Why? And then, of course, everyone's like, it's not predictable. You just don't know what you're talking about. You just don't like it because it didn't work. Did it not feel like David Long Jr. knew exactly when they were going to run the ball on Monday night?
And the screens. It seemed like they had a kind of a good read on the screens. But I don't know. Maybe there's something in the film, in the tell or something.
Well, I think part of it, too, when it comes to the screens is they keep babying the quarterback. And I do believe that they decided to stop babying the quarterback after that first 2-minute drive where they ran it, and punted.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second 2-minute drive when Levis threw the ball 50 yards down
Before
the field.
Before halftime,
Yeah. They're like, okay, we can stop babying the quarterback. But they definitely baby the quarterback, which is why I blame Levis should have never thrown that ball on the pick six. He also never should have tried to hit the guy with his kidney, in the end zone after he'd already scored a touchdown.
The defensive lineman was looking for the contact on that one, too.
Stupid. So he shouldn't have done that. Spears should have made a better effort on the ball. Skoronski should have knocked the guy out of the way. But it was a terrible play call because the Dolphins knew what you were going to do. The Dolphins knew exactly what you were going to do. They were prepared for it. It was almost like they watched film and they said, hey, when they get into third and impossible situations, they're going to run the screen. So be prepared for it. And the defensive tackle was. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Join me, Chris, and Derek at Teddy's Tavern this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for the award-winning pregame show, as we'll get you set for Titans and Texans. And our pregame show, which is award-winning, is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and the Beast Unleashed. Coming up next, I, again, did watch the Dolphins Hard Knocks just to see, what they were saying about the Titans and how they reacted to the game and everything else. And I walked away with one really unexpected takeaway. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
And the Dolphins lose a disappointing game like you wouldn't believe.
I don't even know what happened. Wow. Wow. I'm in disbelief right now.
That's gonna really hurt for multiple reasons. It's not supposed to be easy. We have to find a way to get better from this. Let it hurt. It's annoying as shit. It's about us playing our best football as we go at the very end of the season. So if this is what it takes for us to be our cleanest, best version of ourselves, then bring it.
That was Mike McDaniel to his team after the game on Hard Knocks after they lost to the Titans. That, by the way, was Raheem Mostert's wife that was like, I can't believe it. I mean, what just happened? Well, what happened is the Titans special teams, which had been awful because Vrabel took too long to fire the coach, has a practice squad punt returner who tried to field a ball for God knows why, I have no idea. And then they called a stupid pitch with a guy that doesn't have great hands trying to catch it and a guy who's not used to running it trying to throw it. And then the Dolphins had a 14-point lead, and then the Titans took the handcuffs off the quarterback, and they moved right down the field, scored. They moved right down the field and scored again. That's what happened. Now, let's get to the one takeaway I got to get off my chest from this. Watching that one episode of Hard Knocks, which I don't watch Hard Knocks anymore. When I was in the 7th grade, they had Hard Knocks with the Cowboys when Emmitt Smith was still on the team, and I just thought it was the coolest freaking thing I'd ever seen. But sometime around like the Bengals of 2011 or 2010 or whenever that was, I kind of gave up on Hard Knocks. It just kind of got, it's repetitive to me. It's the same thing every time. But I really soured on Mike McDaniel. I really soured on Mike McDaniel. You know, again, I don't know much about Mike McDaniel because I don't watch the Dolphins very often. I know that the Dolphins were terrible. He took over as coach. They traded for Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden, Tua has turned into a guy that some of you all want to give $50 million to, which makes no sense to me. But again, you all are, I guess, entitled to your opinion. But just watching him in that one episode of Hard Knocks, I felt like McDaniel was trying to be too cool. He was trying to be too tough. Kind of had like an insecure vibe for a head coach. And I'll give you an example. Like he's wearing a Louis Vuitton sweatshirt inside the Dolphins facility, right? And it's like, why are you wearing a Louis Vuitton sweatshirt inside the facility? Have you ever been in an NFL facility? It's all dudes wearing team gear all the time. How many free Dolphins Nike sweatshirts does Mike McDaniel own? Do you think you'd ever walk in to St. Thomas Sports Park and see Mike Vrabel wearing a Louis Vuitton sweatshirt? I mean, so like, again, why do you need to do that? It's almost like, hey, I got to show the players that I've got money too. Thought that was weird. Then they showed a cut of him talking to the Dolphins about like, if the season ended today, we would be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I'm like, what coach talks like that? That's what a fan talks about. That's what we in the media talk about. That's not what they talk about inside those buildings. At least I didn't think that that's what they talked about inside those buildings. And then I got to be honest, and I am a guy who uses curse words from time to time. Just so much swearing. I felt like I was watching Rex Ryan on the Jets, but at least with Rex Ryan, like that's part of the character, right? Like Rex is Las Vegas put into a head football coach. Like the definition of gluttony and foot fetish and, snacking and beer. He's like the Babe Ruth of coaches, right? Just all hot dogs and beer. That's Rex Ryan's persona. I don't think Mike McDaniel is going for the Rex Ryan thing, is he? But my goodness, they just cursed. Carl's like he's trying to talk like Tony Soprano over here, and I don't, what am I doing? So, again, when it comes to most of the coaches in the league, I don't keep up with them on a daily basis. The ones that are in your division, for the most part, I've got a pretty good feel on. Now, there's all these new coaches, so it's a little different. But, like, I had a really good feel on Frank Reich because we followed the Colts a lot. I have a really good feel on Vrabel. Everybody talks about Vrabel around the country like, oh, Vrabel. And I'm like, yeah, but he can't manage a coaching staff, and he doesn't know what he's doing with the offensive line, and he shouldn't be running personnel and all those things. But, I mean, going into this, my perception of Mike McDaniel was like, yeah. Mike McDaniel, I mean, seemed fine to me. Seems like a good coach. Oh, and there was one other thing that just drove me crazy. So after the first Titans gifted touchdown in the fourth quarter, after Guerra fumbled the punt, Raheem Mostert puts the ball in the end zone, right? And they made a big deal on the Hard Knocks broadcast because they had Mostert's like family mic'd up and everything else and whatever. And they showed McDaniel going by to talk to Mostert. Like he goes to the bench and he's talking to Mostert. And as he's talking to Mostert, they're running the kickoff in the background. Like, dude, you're the coach. Watch the game. Like there could be something that could happen in this game. And you're busy talking to the running back. You're the head coach. That's why you have a running backs coach, is to talk to the running back. You've got to be watching. So I got to tell you, I like, everything I've seen from Mike McDaniel. He yammers on too much in these press conferences. But I'll tell you, that Hard Knocks episode, I'm like, dude, what is up with this guy? Texture says, did you hear McDaniel ask Tua if they should throw to Tyreek when he came back in the game from injury? Like, you're the head coach. Why are you asking Tua? Well, in all fairness, Tua's the one who throws the ball. So if McDaniel wants Tua to throw the ball, he's got one of two ways to make sure that he knows he wants him to throw Tyreek the ball. One is to say, you throw it to Tyreek, which with some of these guys at quarterback, they'll look at the coach and say, screw you, coach, I'll throw the ball where I want to throw it. Or you say, hey, what do you think about getting him involved? So I don't have a problem with that. At that point, when they hit the guy on the sideline, like Tyreek, at that point in the game, I was tweeting, I'm like, the Dolphins have to prove to me that Tyreek Hill's healthy. What I think happened is remember how on the ESPN broadcast they said Tyreek was late to come out of the locker room. Then they showed him coming out of the locker room, and he didn't play in the third quarter. I think what they did was they waited till the last possible second. They shot up the ankle, and so it took some time for the shot to kick in. And so the shot kicked in, and that's when Tyreek had a couple of those plays. And then I wonder if the shot wore off at the end of the game when Tyreek was standing on the sidelines. Because Peyton and Eli, they were like on the Manning cast, like, you got to go, Tyreek. And he didn't. But that's just my takeaway from watching a Hard Knocks episode. The next time I will watch Hard Knocks, Ian, I haven't watched a summer Hard Knocks and watched the episodes like I cared probably in 10 years.
I watched the first one of the Jets with Rodgers this past.
Was it good?
It was okay, but I didn't really go back. I just wanted to just see his interaction and just kind of stuff. You've had enough of the Rodgers stuff. I get it. Yeah.
I'm just going to say this right now. I think we'll all be watching Hard Knocks this upcoming summer.
Oh, boy.
I think we will all be watching.
Uh-huh. I see what you did there.
And some of us might even be starring.
Oh, whoa.
Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. TD's next for the TD Power Hour, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. TD is here for the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport from ESPN. Hello, TD.
What's going on?
So let's just get right to it. Miami, the takeaways, the game, the bad, the good, what it means, the quarterback. TD's thoughts.
Yeah, I think we can start with the quarterback, and I have to smile as I think about how his energy was. They called it the crazy eyes, the hulking pose that he did. That's something that really rubbed off on a lot of the guys talking to them in the locker room today. They said that they felt the energy that he brought. So you have that. And then just the performance, right? Having that YOLO mindset, throwing the ball to DeAndre Hopkins and just seeing that relationship develop. I'm actually have a post that's coming up tomorrow on that relationship and how it's developed. So you got that. DeAndre Hopkins quietly is on pace for the 9th best receiving season in Titans and Oilers history. I don't know if you knew that.
And that includes the run and shoot days.
Exactly. You know, 1,174 yards. So you have that. And then the defense, right? Those guys came alive up front. I know you have your opinion about Tua after this game. We're going to talk about that. But let's talk about how he was pressured so much. Mm-hmm. You got Danico Autry, Arden Key, Harold Landry. If you go back, and I told him today, because he had a little ghost move where he showed the long arm and pulled it back and dipped the shoulder.
Was that when he just popped right around the guy?
That's how he got right around him. So now you're seeing something in addition to the fastball that he brings. You know, the bending off the edge. 3 sacks. That's a major thing what he was able to do. So you had the impact there.
Don't leave out Jaleel Johnson, because that play that he made was,
I was getting to that eventually, right? Because, you know, you had the botch snap, and then he was in there, and that sack was 1 point, or that getting to the quarterback, 1.7 seconds. That's the fastest time from snap to quarterback this year. Mm-hmm. Jaleel Johnson, Brooklyn's own Jaleel Johnson, might I add. But then you have that. The way that they played in the secondary, it was a lot of just like sideline to sideline, because that's the thing that you have to remember. This Dolphins team, they stretch the field horizontally as well as vertically, right? And there were times where you had that cheat motion and it opened up a passing lane on the slant over top of it, and they defended that pretty well. And that's something that you have to give them credit for. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was out for a bit in the game. He came back, had somewhat of an impact, and that's when the scoring started to come. But I think they did a really good job. You got to tip your cap to Shane Bowen, to Mike Vrabel, and the crew defensively. Offensively, I had a little bit of an issue, right? That drive right after Danico Autry had the block field goal.
Yes.
But I thought Tim Kelly's explanation when I asked him about it was pretty interesting.
What did he say today?
So he said, you know, they got 6 yards on the first run, and you had a penalty. And then it kind of got behind the chains, but they decided to run the ball again twice because they were playing the field position game. They didn't want to give the ball back to that Dolphins offense, knowing how potent they are with a lot of time left, right? So they played the field position game. They punted, and then they had the 3 and out, and I'm like, well, what changed? And he said the time. So then there was less time on the clock. They could go ahead and go at it the way that they wanted to. 45-yard YOLO to Hopkins. Next thing you know, you're in field goal position.
By the way, that was a classic DeAndre Hopkins
Man, listen,
catch.
DeAndre Hopkins is so good. He's so good. I think it's funny to me how much he's underrated, and like how could a guy who has the 28th most receiving yards be underrated?
Mm-hmm. A guy who got Bill O'Brien fired.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Well, Bill O'Brien got Bill O'Brien fired.
Right, because he traded. In that sense, yeah. So it just, the thing to me, like, he reminds me so much of Chris Carter, just the way he's so outstanding along the boundary, and just his hand, like, they're like vacuum cleaners, you know. So you have that. Tajay Spears, can you give him his props now?
Oh, I thought Tajay Spears played great.
Yeah.
He played great.
Over the shoulder catch, and then that catch and run on that last drive,
There was one
legit,
catch, I want to say, where like Levis led him perfectly off to the side, and he caught it and ran up with it.
It was a third down?
Yeah, I think that was the most impressive catch that I've seen from Spears this season.
Most impressive one was that over the shoulder.
I know, but then he fumbled it.
Yeah, well, he got body rocked. Like it was a perfect play by the safety. He put his head on the football and it came out. But I mean, he caught the ball.
Sure.
And catching that, like, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, But when
I have never been in that situation, I'm not sure I'd survive it very well.
When you're running and you see out the corner of your eye, you're looking like this, and you see, like, you really shouldn't look, but you can't help but see it out your peripheral, that guy bearing down on you, all you're thinking is like, man, let me just catch this thing and ball up so that I can spin off of it, and you don't always get to spin off of it, and what happened.
I thought Spears played excellent on Monday night. I think that what's happened is, like, he has kind of found a role. You know what's going to sound crazy, though? I was more impressed by Spears' performance against Indy than I was against Miami because Spears ran so hard against Indianapolis, especially when Henry went out of the game, which gave me, hope that Spears – I still think, Spears is a guy – I'm not going to say he's long-term the second guy in a two-back package, but I think he's made for, like, the newfound two-back packages that a lot of teams run in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you actually were the one that texted me about this months ago, that Jerome Bettis, Willie Parker thing – I can see kind of going on with Henry and Spears. The thing that I love about Levis is that every game he plays, whether it's the best game he played, which was the Atlanta game or this game or even the Tampa Bay game, the talent is so obvious. And then he gets the crap knocked out of him, and it never affects him on the next play.
Doesn't affect him. That's a tough cookie. That throw that he had, the 24-yarder to Hopkins on the right side, right? You had Bradley Chubb bearing down on him. And it was, I think it was second quarter, I want to say. Yeah, second quarter, because they were going this way. And
you're talking about the one where he had to fit the ball in perfectly.
You had a man in front of him, beside him, and bearing down on him. And that thing was just like, here you go right there. Take that. And he caught that thing, spun out of the tackle. But the fact that he was able to have that precise of a throw with an outstanding edge rusher in Bradley Chubb bearing down on him, and he wasn't able to step into it, it just was all arm. And then the touchdown to Hopkins in the fourth quarter, right? You had, and that's an underrated thing that we don't talk about enough with Levis.
Down to that tight,
Not only did he find a tight window, but the pocket, right?
Yeah.
I know you don't like inside-out protection, but that's an example of why you want it so much, right? Because he was able to step up, move to his right, and Hopkins was able to uncover, and he threw it across the body. Excellent throw, placement, boom, touchdown.
And not only that, that was a throw that he missed in one of the earlier games. I want to say maybe Pittsburgh, where he ran and threw an incomplete pass or something, and then they showed DeAndre doing a jumping jack in the middle of the field. Yeah. And so he missed that throw 4 weeks ago, and then that is exactly what I want to see the young quarterback.
From your mistakes.
Yes,
you stack you stack your reps. You know what I mean?
And football is the one sport, and I kind of feel this way about the other sports too, but football's the one sport where there's no way to play it outside of actually playing it.
That's the best experience that you get.
There's no way to do it because, like in baseball, they can send you to AAA or they can send you to AA. In basketball, there's the G League, or you can play 5-on-5, at practice, and you get the guys together. You can't just pick up and play football.
No.
And so
you can't simulate that.
And I see Levis getting better, and I see Levis's teammates responding to him.
Man, are they? Are they really? Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because I was just kind of like bouncing from scrum to scrum. Didn't really ask any questions, but looked at their face when Levis was brought up. And it's like, you know how it used to be when David Long would get brought up? It's the same thing. They just
Did you smile on Monday night with the way David Long played?
Man, I smiled when I met up with him, gave him the biggest hug. I probably put a hole in his back, pounding it. You know how you give a hug to somebody you ain't seen in a while. You're like, don't dap him up. Yeah, it was good to see him. He was balling.
So the first play of the game, I turned to my dad. Yeah. And I said, I go, hand off to Derrick, loss of 1, second and 11. And immediately they hand off to Derrick. And David Longshot, I'm like, he knows exactly what I know.
Yep.
And so that's why he made the play he made. I am the way that I felt on Tuesday was I'm very cautious with young quarterbacks of getting too excited. I mean, as I've said, I lived through Vince Young, who his rookie year, he was the truth.
I covered the Eagles with Carson Wentz.
Right.
Trust.
So I get, Wentz was Mahomes the year before Mahomes. And I try not to get too excited because we've seen it going all the way back to Rick Meyer, who had a decent rookie year. And then they found out he couldn't throw to the left side of the field. And yet, what Levis showed was the it factor. And then it doesn't get talked about enough because they ended up losing the Colts game in overtime. But Levis, in the fourth quarter, brought him down the field.
To kick the field.
In overtime, brought him down the field of the Colts game. And so then he does it again this week in a winning effort against the Dolphins. And I'm starting to think like he's showing us signs of the it factor that can't really be described, but every great quarterback has to have it.
You know the thing that I like, and this is why I like asking these guys, okay, what's he like in the huddle? You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, he's calm, he's collected, he's unbothered. But then they scored a touchdown. And it's like, Bill Bigsby coming out his clothes all of a sudden. You know what I mean? The way that energy, and you feel that energy so much. And I thought that was pretty cool, just how he understands, like, it has to be controlled. But there's a time when you could unleash it. And instead of just, fist pump or something like that.
This ain't golf.
He went nuts.
Now, when he did that, I was like,
and they're
hey.
scared. Let me tell you, they all, Traylon Burks, Arden Key.
They don't want to get headbutted
They're
by
like,
him?
I'm not trying to get that chest bump. I don't want that.
When he went crazy on the sidelines after that, I was like, calm down, big fella. Calm down. Like, let's act like we've been there before. Well, and then Kirk Cousins.
Let him get hyped, man.
So Kirk Cousins, I think, articulated better than I did when he was on the Manning cast, and he was like, Will, there's 149 left. You might have to go back in the game. I was like, that's probably the better way to say it than the way I said it. But I'm like saying, like, hey, calm down. And I do think, too, like, I've always talked about conflict and how sometimes I think conflict, while a lot of people try to avoid conflict, that relationships can become stronger.
Yes.
The him and DeAndre thing last week against Indianapolis, I didn't like it because what I really didn't like was I didn't like the hands in the air standing on the field because I felt that was kind of a show up.
Hopkins is taking no shorts, man.
But
he said it. He said it. Like, no more rookie mistakes. None of that stuff. Like,
I'm talking about Levis putting his hands in the air. So he throws the ball on the sidelines. Hopkins, is looking like that, and Levis is standing there in the pocket with his hands up, like, "What are you doing?" And I didn't like that.
Hopkins was like this, like pointing to the sideline.
But I didn't like that from the quarterback because it's almost like a pitcher when a guy makes an error. You can't look at stare down the third baseman.
No, that's a good point.
And then Matt Ryan on the TV broadcast was like, the quarterback's got to be kind of picking his battles here and there. But then Levis said on the following Wednesday, we've got a relationship, but I wish I hadn't have done that, or not going to do that again. And those are the learning moments.
I'm going to tell you what Chris Sanders said on Talking with TD, because we got into that. And he said that it's a great thing that as a rookie quarterback, DeAndre Hopkins is going to wear a yellow jersey, like a gold jacket. You know what I mean? But as a rookie quarterback, you're confident enough to step up to him. And then he's calm enough to say, hey, all right, cool. All right. Like, absorb it. You know what I mean? Whereas, because that could get ugly. Like, we've seen, hey, look at the Eagles, AJ and Jalen Hurts. It got a little ugly, right? You know what I mean?
and Tony Romo back in the day?
Ooh, that used to be terrible. So, T.O. and Jeff Garcia. Like, we could go
T.O.
on
and Donovan McNabb.
Yeah. So, the fact that happened and it was cool, it wasn't a bad exchange, is really good because, as Chris said, like that shows that they both trust each other and are willing to learn from each other. That's key.
So I have a thought on that, about the relationship with Hopkins and Levis, and I want to throw Henry in this, and I want to get to that coming up next. TD's with us. Get your phones in for TD in the text line, like we'll hit him at the end of the hour like we always do. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You got a lot of fans that love this football team. What do you want them to know about this team?
Yeah, I mean, we just want to keep fighting. We ain't gonna give up. I know a lot of people have written us off, we understand, the reason why. But at the end of the day, we still got football to play. We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep believing in one another and keep playing until the clock hits 0-0 and see where we're at.
That was Derrick Henry after the win. So TD, I have a theory, and it really popped on me after watching Hard Knocks last night and seeing how much Mike McDaniel and Ryan Slowick and Vic Fangio were all paying attention to Henry and the running game and not going viral with the stiff arm and everything else. And I'm like, they need to bring Derrick Henry back next year because teams worry about Derrick Henry.
Absolutely.
And then I think about Hopkins and how much he has helped Levis. And so I know that Derrick Henry's a free agent. I know Derrick was asked today if Will Levis has kind of got him a little pumped up about maybe wanting to stay. And, of course, Derrick gave the Derrick answer of, I'm not worried about that right now. But I really think the Titans need to bring Derrick Henry back. And instead of, nickel and diming and trying to play a negotiating game, give him a contract that is worthy of the been there, done that guy. Keep him as the face of the team for other teams to worry about to help Levis so that Levis can pop next year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, Arden Key said it today about how, as outside looking in, right, how he's defensively prepared to stop for the Titans.
Yeah.
And he said it starts with Derrick Henry. He's the horse. When you stop the horse, then everything else goes wrong. So that's right there coming from a guy who has game planned against Henry, twice.
Including what was basically a playoff game, last year, that Jacksonville finale.
Exactly. And it was somewhat successful in those games. So you're 100% right. I think it is good for Henry also because you look at Emmitt Smith. Like, he went to Arizona and was just like, come on.
Eddie George to Dallas.
Yeah. You don't want to see that. And I think he could still
Didn't
be
Eric
here.
Dickerson go to the Falcons?
Eric Dickerson went, Falcons. I mean, it was a few.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, you don't want to see that. And so Thurman Thomas with the daggone Dolphins, man. So my point is he could stay here with the Titans and still have that role as far as he and Tajay Spears. Hassan Haskins, I saw him in the locker room today, talking to him a little bit. But, he could still have that role as a part of a group. And then you're going to have those vintage games where they're going to lean on him. They're going to. Like, there's going to be those games where he gets 25 to 30 carries. I don't see that happening anywhere else. So, yeah, absolutely, you want to have him in the mix and how much that helps Will Levis as well and the play-action passing game and everything else.
And I think, too, the other thing that Derrick brings is – and I don't believe in signing guys just for sentimental value unless it's like a league minimum kind of contract. So I don't think this is a sentimental value, but I do think that it matters that Derrick Henry has the accomplishments under the name that the other guys respect unequivocally. And that when young guys, and there's going to be more young players on the football team next year, when young players come to the Titans, like, they don't need to read about Derrick Henry. They know Derrick Henry. And that the way Derrick, carries himself, the way that he competes, the way that he treats the media, the way that he treats his teammates, like, that's what I want the young players to emulate. And especially guys like Levis and Spears.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Derrick Henry has come so far as dealing with the media, where, like, he looks comfortable up there, he jokes with us and everything. That's a lot different. And I noticed that there aren't as many days where it's like, I am not asking him any questions this week. You know what I mean? There's every week it's like, okay, I do want to, let me figure out a question. I got the, and then on top of that, when you talk about culture setters, right? That's what he is. I mean, think about it. You're Tajay Spears, a rookie, right? And you see during special teams period, he goes over to the sand pit and do you think you're going to take a single rep off?
Yeah.
Heck no. You know what I mean? So I think that's a positive thing also.
I look back at the Steelers when Big Ben was in his second year, and it was kind of similar to this, right? Tommy Maddox was the quarterback. He got hurt. Ben goes in. Rookie year. Ben keeps the job. Now, they made it to the playoffs. They didn't lose a game after that, but this team's not going to be that way. But the transition happened in the rookie season. The second year, they still kept Jerome Bettis. And I was actually watching some NFL top 10 list this weekend, and they talked about Bettis to the Steelers and that there was a game in that last season where Bettis, in like December, people were treating Bettis like, yeah, grandpa's just playing out the string, and Bettis went crazy. Like 100-something yards, and he ran like the bus. And remember how big of a deal it was at that time that the bus was going home to Detroit?
Yeah.
And even though Roethlisberger was the quarterback and Willie Parker got a lot of carries, and they had great receivers back then. Hines Ward, and I don't know if Burris was still there or not, but Antoine Randall was there.
Yeah, Plax wasn't there.
And they had great players, and yet that team was still led by Bettis, even though Bettis was kind of on his way, kind of on hole 17 and 18. That's how I feel about this for next year.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think I'm not going to sit here and say Super Bowl or any of that stuff.
Right.
But, I mean, I get what you're saying as far as, like, you have the makings of what could be something special. And that's a good analogy. I just think, they're going to have a very, very good offseason. I don't know if you saw that stat that they have the most percentage of snaps going to free agency, 44%. So they're going to have to spend the money wisely. Obviously, I'm going to tell you, just to spin it forward a little bit, I really think Darnell Mooney, they need to sign. Darnell Mooney, Devin Duvernay. I think they need to bring one of those two guys in because you put Duvernay back there. Now
Solves
your
that
punt
punt
return
return
situation,
issue, yeah.
and you're going to get leverage as far as the field position is concerned.
So one thing I think they're already looking at, and this hasn't been discussed much, but I noticed it. And then when Vrabel was asked about it, he didn't kind of deny it, or I think that they put Calvin Throckmorton in the game. Again, there's no way to simulate offensive line play other than playing football. And they put him in the game when Brunskill wasn't hurt, and they put him at right guard. And I think they did that for two reasons on Monday night. And then when the going got tough, they put Brunskill back in the game. I think there's two reasons. One of two reasons they did that. One, they wanted to see what Throckmorton looked like to see if he could be an answer at guard next year. Two, it would not surprise me if they move Brunskill out to right tackle because Radens can't stop jumping off sides.
I mean, that's something. That's a possibility. I know Brunskill, he missed practice today also, so it's not like he's free and clear of that ankle.
Isn't he one of those guys that's kind of always hurt but plays through it, kind of like Ben Jones was always hurt but he played through it?
The respect level that he commands after that
Pittsburgh?
No, I think it was the Colts game. Where
Pittsburgh was the one where everybody went down all at the same time, and he came back in once everybody – because Petit Frere got hurt, and then he came back in and got more hurt, and then Radens came in.
Was it the Pittsburgh one? I think I
remember Vrabel got up there.
I just remember watching him walk back. I think it was Pittsburgh because I was like to go down and see the guys come back, and I remember looking at it, and I recorded it. Then after I recorded, I was just like, dang, like he really, man, I earned he earned a lot of respect from me just watching.
So I'm glad you brought that up about the snaps going to free agency because our 3:30 topic is how many holes have to be filled this offseason and how many players are proving they can fill those roles. So we'll get to that coming up next with TD, Stillman and Company. We roll along 102.5, 106.3 The Game. if this were the end of the year and we were having organizational meetings and I was the GM and I pitched to you the idea of, Trevor, what do you think about entering the offseason with the idea that we're good at left guard and left tackle with Skoronski and Duncan? How would you feel about me wanting to commit to Duncan at left tackle?
I think you were absolutely out of your mind. And I would invite you to continue your career in the world of finance or possibly construction, because he may grow into that, but until he does, he's not. And right now he is an enormous liability over there. And he's doing his best. He's only a 6th-round pick or something. So it's not like, you throw him in there when 2 other guys get hurt. And then if he's not playing like an all-pro, you're going to rain on him. He's doing his level best.
That was Trevor earlier this week. And TD, you brought up a stat I didn't even know, that apparently the Titans have the most snaps going into free agency this year. I mean, the way I look at it right now, the Titans need a starting left tackle, center, right guard, right tackle, a starting receiver, a starting tight end, although, I don't think I can go into the year with Chig as the starter next year, but he'll still be a big part of the offense.
I think Chig and Wiley is an all right combination, honestly.
I could be talked into that. And then a starting defensive tackle, because Tart is a free agent. A starting defensive end, because Autry's a free agent. Probably 2 starting inside backers, unless you want to put Gibbons back out there, which I don't.
You don't need 2. I mean, contrary to what you believe, Azeez O'Shire is a solid player.
But he's a free agent. So you have to re-sign him.
Yeah, you re-sign him.
And then probably 2 corners, because Fulton's probably not coming back. Murphy Bunting's probably not coming back.
Well, why not?
Murphy Bunting?
Why Murphy Bunting?
Well, he's a free agent too.
I think he could be back.
Like the same, 1 year, $5
Probably
million.
Not that type of deal. But I think he came in and he showed enough to earn a 2 to 3 year deal.
And then they need a starting safety.
This draft is chock full of safeties, I will say that.
That's how many guys, and I use Duncan as the example here.
Mm-hmm.
Duncan, Gibbons, how many guys that are playing starting roles right now do you think have truly earned, or that you would feel comfortable about saying, this is our starter next year if you were the GM or you were the coach, and it's not like we think Dylan Radins can start at right tackle like they did 2 years ago, which I thought was, almost criminal to go into the year with Ian, don't make me tell the right tackle story again.
No, we've heard it.
We've heard it.
How many guys do you actually think are on this team right now that are under contract or could be re-signed for next year that are legitimate NFL starters that they would be okay plugging in next year? Not that, we could do it, but yes, he can start at left tackle.
All right, so I'm counting through it. Offensively, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like spades. 6 and a possible.
Okay.
On offense. Defense. 1, 2. Not counting guys that are free agents.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oof.
And there's not anybody that's worth tagging. Even Tart, who I do like, is not worth a franchise tag.
I say 4 on defense. I want to see. I really wonder, what's up with Terrell Edmonds?
Like why he doesn't play at all?
Or why he isn't better. You look at him physically.
It's a first-round draft choice.
That's what I'm saying. And you look at him physically, you're just like, good. Look, that's a safety. That's what they look like. And he moves well. And it's just I wonder what that deal is.
And being a box safety doesn't really require more than having the body of a box safety and being able to tackle.
Yeah. And Kayvon Wallace isn't bad either, but I do think that they could use one of those more range. I think Cam Kinches would fit here very nicely. He's someone, but it's going to require a higher pick, so I don't know. But Yeah, so I say 4. So a total, what we say, 6 in the possible.
Yeah.
So 10 in the possible.
So 10 holes or 10 locks? Like 10 feel good about?
10 locks. Brunskill is the one where I'm like, I would feel good about him at right guard, but I don't know that they would because you look at how they're doing that, as far as like wanting to see that size of Throckmorton in there.
So is it feasible for them to be able to fill all these holes with like legitimate NFL players in the offseason and not run into the situation that they've run into the last 2 years where they went into free agency, into the offseason, they didn't sign a right tackle, they let Quessenberry go, they didn't draft a right tackle until they drafted Petit Ferrer, who I think they drafted to be the eventual replacement to Lawan in the 3rd round. And so, and even then, when you draft an offensive lineman nowadays, they just don't practice enough for it. Like, it takes a season for them to. So, do they have enough ammunition to be able to get these players? Will there be those kind of players on the market for them to get starting caliber players in here and not go into the offseason thinking, hey, Radens can be our right tackle. Hey, Brewer can be our center. Hey, Monty Rice can be an inside backer. And then that's how they end up with Jack Gibbons and a rookie Nicholas Petit Ferrer playing right tackle.
I mean, there's talent out there, but the fact of the matter is offensive linemen that are high quality, they either don't hit the market or they hit the market and it demands buku bucks.
Yeah, Orlando Brown is not worth the money that Orlando Brown's being paid. Jawan Taylor is not worth the money that Jawan Taylor is being paid. But if you want a left tackle who can start in the NFL on a good team, you have to pay the Orlando Brown money.
Right, if you want a veteran one.
Mm-hmm.
But this draft is full of pretty good left tackles. You know what I mean? And right tackles for that matter. So you have a good 4 to 5 that you could say, okay, I'm going to take you and I'm going to put you here and you're going to learn and you're going to be the left tackle and we're going to have you there for the next 10 years and welcome to Nashville, right? But at the same time, you have to be in position to take one of those because of how coveted they are. So you got that tackle situation. Receiver-wise, there's an abundance of options. T. Higgins is very, very intriguing, but I always, as I look at the number 2 receiver, like the Robin to the Batman, I'm always hesitant because I look at the Peerless Price, right? I look at the Alvin Harper. There's a lot that you can mention. That's
old school.
Hey, listen, my catalog is deep, baby. But there's a lot that you could look at. You know what I mean, and just say, I don't know. And T. Higgins is going to warrant big money.
Oh, he's going to get number 1 money.
But if it hits, you're in really good shape, and he's exactly what you need, that vertical guy.
Here's the problem with a guy like Higgins. I think Cincinnati's going to tag him and trade him. So they're not going to give him the big deal because the big deal is going to go to Jamar Chase. And what they're going to do is they're going to put the franchise tag on him. And then that way they will get a pick in return for losing T. Higgins. So if you get T. Higgins, not only do you have to give T. Higgins the contract, but you also have to give up, a 2nd-round pick or something in order to get T. Higgins. And I think the Bengals would be smart to do that because there's such a need for established receivers, that I think they'd have 20 suitors in the league that would call them about
somebody
T. Higgins.
Would want it. Absolutely. The other thing I do look at, Tyler Boyd, I think would be the perfect free agent for them to sign. Calvin Ridley would be a good free agent for them to sign. But again, it goes back to Darnell Mooney. And I really feel if they fall, in that range where they're out of the running for one of those top 4 or 5 tackles, Keon Coleman would be perfect for this team. Because he's such a vertical threat, and that size that he has, and he can return punts if you want him to do that. But you match that target range, the radius with Levis, like it would be. And just imagine, that's the thing why Hopkins, you absolutely have to have him back because he's going to benefit. I mean, think about it. You're going to work you experienced it, right? You came to work every day working with the GM, right? So you're like, man, I couldn't get better on the job training to understand the game from all angles. So imagine being a rookie and you're going to work and your locker's next to DeAndre freaking Hopkins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's going to benefit him.
I'm about to do something that I hate when people do this, like when callers, texters, whatever do this, and I get mad when people do this, and now I'm about to do it. when people are like, Jared, we need a left tackle in the draft. It's like, well, if you're picking at 9 and the left tackle has the third left tackle has a grade, a B grade, and the best receiver has an A grade, it's like, well, I'd rather have the A receiver than the B. Exactly. But I do think this team needs young, fast playmaking at receiver opposite Hopkins.
Yeah.
And
Darnell Mooney, Devin Duvernay are Darnell Mooney more for opposite Hopkins, but I still think, young, fast is good, but Keon Coleman is young. Maybe not a 4-3 guy, but when you can run in the 4-4 range at 6'4" or 6'3", whatever.
AJ's 4'9".
Yeah, you know what I mean? There's other guys, though. You look at the local kid from Texas, right? He went to Cane Ridge, A.D. Mitchell. He's another one. You look at Michigan. They have a receiver. There's, we could go through and look at a bunch of guys and say, hey, they'll fit. But I just think if you want it, my favorite receiver in this draft is Xavier Legette. That's my favorite.
South Carolina?
I love the fit. He reminds me of AJ, right? And I'm talking about styles of play. But if you look at, like, guys that could come in and impact right away, I think Keon Coleman would probably and Neighbors is interesting too, but I think Coleman just –
I think they're going to win this week, and I think that takes them out of the Neighbors sweepstakes.
I don't know that I'd take Neighbors before Coleman, to be honest with you.
Oh, my goodness. I look.
I know you fall in love quick.
I do.
You fall in love quick.
I have not.
You fall out of it quick too, because Tua.
I never loved Tua.
No. But you hate him now. You can't base that off of one game.
So I was always I always thought. So Tua reminds me how I felt about Jared Goff, which was when Jared Goff was, in the league MVP conversation and lighting it up, I was like, he's not that good. He's got a great running back in Todd Gurley. He's got a great offensive coach in McVay who tells him what to do before the play.
He's good in the situation that he's in.
Right. But the way people were talking about him was like, Jared Goff and Tom Brady, and I'm like, whoa.
But you look at last year and this year, Goff has played pretty well.
No. So then Goff gets booted out of town, and everyone's like, he sucks. And I'm like, he doesn't suck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, again, so when everybody thought he was great, I was like, whoa. And then when everyone was like, he sucks, I was like, he doesn't suck.
But you said Tua sucks. And he doesn't.
I do think Tua's phony. I actually did want to get into this. It's not one game. I've always thought Tua was kind of phony.
He's perfect for that scheme.
I'd be perfect if I could throw it deep to Tyreek every time.
He's not just throwing it deep to Tyreek, though. You look at the accuracy. There's a reason why they lead the league in yards after the catch. It's because of those players, but it's also because Tua perfectly hits them in stride to allow them to accelerate through the catch and get those yards after the catch. Tua has a big deal to do with that. And it takes talent to throw the ball down the field to a road runner like Tyreek Hill accurately. You look at how these balls are falling. Like, it's not like he has to totally adjust. Like, it's falling right there, boop, and he catches it and runs. Tua's a good quarterback.
If I were the Dolphins, this is just me. I might get fired. If I was a GM, quite frankly, I'd probably get fired pretty quickly. If I was a GM and Tua walked in and said, because it's about to be contract time for Tua, right? And the going rate for these dudes is $50 million upwards. Justin Herbert walks in my office, here's your money. Jalen Hurts walks in my office, here's your money. When Brock Purdy walks in my office, here's your money. Trevor Lawrence, and I don't even like Trevor Lawrence that much.
So you just automatically, you talk about guys who are good in a scheme and work for, you're going to just automatically give Brock Purdy that, but you won't give oh, Lord.
And I don't even like Trevor Lawrence that
Lord
much.
Have mercy.
I would give Trevor the money.
I can't overlook the Brock Purdy thing.
If Tua walked into my office and wanted $50 million, I would say no. I was like, we'll give you 30. We're not giving you 50. And I think that I could get Sam Darnold to do the same thing Tua's doing. I'm dead serious. I think that little of Tua.
Sam Darnold has a lot of talent, but there's too many turnovers, man.
But watch the tape last year after Tepper got out and they fired and they put Steve Wilkes in there who should have been the coach of that team and not Frank Reich.
Yeah, there's turnovers though. That guy right there, he loves Tua, man. I had to tell him pregame, like, yo, there's a quarterback on the other side that's pretty good, man. Watch him.
I would love to ask Marino after the game was over, Dan, if you switch the quarterbacks, what would you think about it? We'll get to your phones for TD. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. TD Power Hour, time for your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kinston, who else, TD, is going to start us off? Kinston, go ahead. You're on with TD.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
My guy, TD, Jared, what's happening? A little bit of a comment, 2 questions. I know, TD, one for you. You like Keon Coleman, but, you both follow James Foster, No Flags Film, and keep up with his film breakdowns. And he kind of had an interesting perspective about guys like Keon Coleman, and it kind of makes me think that he's kind of, Traylon Burks 2.0, these big receivers who kind of run 4.5, kind of not really experienced route runners. And I was like, I hear people say they want Keon Coleman. I was like, man, we already got that guy. It's Traylon Burks. This year's Traylon Burks. And he kind of reminds me of that 5-star athlete that signs in college, and he's not really a wide receiver. He's an athlete. Versus Malik Neighbors and Xavier Leggett, Rome Aduze, who are more.
Rome Aduze's a dog.
He's a dog.
More day one, I think, come in and get open against NFL DBs versus, the Traylon Burks and the N'Keal Harry type guys.
You heard me say Leggett is my favorite receiver in this class, right?
When you said that, I was so happy, man.
Okay.
He's a dog.
Yeah.
But so with that, it's interesting how you kind of weigh those guys with kind of the Traylon Burks, Keon Coleman comparison. And then my second kind of comment question is, how poetic would it be this time last year if you would have said the last game of the season against Jacksonville would be for the division? Do you guys foresee, I know it's, 4 games to go, but that last game in Nashville against Jacksonville, could that be worth something to the Titans, or do you think it's a little bit too late? Thanks, guys.
I mean, it could definitely be worth something to the Titans. You look at the schedules, right? The Titans have 2 games against the Texans. They have the Seahawks, and then that game, the Jaguars. I know Jacksonville has the Ravens. I think they have did they have the Dolphins too? I know Jacksonville's schedule is tougher than the Titans' schedule, so it could line up. I don't think it's likely, but I mean, there's always a chance. As for the receivers, I mean, look. I like big guys that can stretch the field as far as for what this team needs. And I'm talking like in terms of, T. Higgins, right?
Sure.
An alternate to signing him to that big deal. That's why I'm thinking Coleman there. But, I mean, bottom line is you want guys that can score the football, and I believe no one receiver-wise could do that better than Leggett.
So one texter, Weston Hermitage, says, TD, for the past 2 days, I have heard a former Titans wide receiver, I wonder who he's talking about, say that game planning was basically the reason why Traylon Burks is not producing. I'm not buying that. Why do you think is the real reason that Burks isn't getting many targets?
I don't know.
And he's talking about Derrick.
Yeah, I know. And I've talked to D-Mace about that. And I even, I asked Vrabel. I didn't get to ask Tim Kelly about that. I asked Vrabel about that, and it's just, one of them things where it seems like the way things are happening, like the coverage is going with him and somebody else is getting open. But there have been a few times where Burks is open. So I don't know if that's something obviously they're not going to tell us who are the top reads, who's the first read in the play call. I drew up a play for Whiteboard Wednesday where I think, he would be the first read in that case and it would be successful for. I showed it to him today and he loved it. But I just think that, it's a combination. I don't know if it's Levis coming off of him because we know that 6 out of 10 times where the ball is going with Levis as a quarterback, it's going to Hopkins.
Yeah, this ain't Tannehill.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. I can't call that one.
I really think Traylon Burks needs a change of scenery. And
it's just so soon to say that.
Part of the reason why I feel that way is because, before he got decapitated in the Eagles game, he was on his way. Like, he was really, the Packer game, the Bengals game, he was on his way.
And then he was back on his way in training camp.
He was. And then the injuries.
But does change of scenery prevent him from tumbling the way he did? Prevent him from getting hit the way? I think Traylon Burks is a very talented receiver. Now, I'm not like you where I'll say he's more talented than AJ. That's crazy. That's crazy talk.
Hey, when he was in Arkansas, he ran the fastest of any wide receiver on a touchdown against Alabama.
Okay, that's great.
Of any wide receiver in college football that year.
That's great. That's great. But what has Arthur Juan Brown done in the NFL? We're not going to talk about that. So what I'll say is he's talented. Love you, man.
I can argue about this all day.
I know you can. That's why I said we're not going to talk about it. I'll say Burks is talented. And I think that it's just a matter of finding ways to get him the football more. I don't know, where he is in the play call as far as the progression, et cetera, but you got to get him the football. He's a playmaker.
Matt says, question for TD, will the Titans extend to Nico Autry?
You hope so, right, for what he's been able to do. I don't think it would be an expensive deal to do, and they got a bunch of money. So blindly, I'm going to say yes, but I don't know, honestly.
That's the thing the Titans really have to decide, as they play down the stretch, because I'm with you. I think the playoffs are a pipe dream. Look, if we get to Week 18 and there's a scenario where the Titans can get in there, then we will cross that bridge when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the playoffs are a pipe dream. I think it's playing for pride. I also think it's playing for developing the future of the team, which right now is number one, the quarterback, but he's not the only part of the team. I do think the Titans need to decide which of their impending free agents they need to re-sign. Why are you looking like that?
Because the Jaguars have the Ravens, Bucks, Panthers, and then the Titans. It's not as tough as I thought.
Yeah, no, that's over. That's over. But I just feel like there's, again, you talked about all the snaps that are going to free agency.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans need to really decide, not what they've done in the past. Again, the David Quessenberry thing of, we'll figure it. No.
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody better than Quessenberry that you feel, you bring his butt back.
Mm-hmm.
And Autry's an example of that, which is
Henry.
Yes. Before you get into the free agent pool, you better make sure you got 3 targets that you like that are better.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly think, Autry's not, Autry takes care of himself, but he is getting up there in age.
He'll be fine.
And so I think Danico Autry's a great player.
I think Autry, Murphy, Bunning, Azeez Al-Shire, and Derrick Henry, those are – go ahead and get the deals done.
I just don't like Azeez.
You watch. He's all over the field. He's solid in coverage.
Like he's a day late and a dollar short.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
And I was starting – who I was starting to feel that way about the other night, or who I've been starting to feel that way the last couple of games about. That I was starting to get, and then Hooker on Monday night, he played great.
I knew you were going to say Hooker.
He played great on Monday. I was like, oh, goodness, this is so nice that he's actually playing great. One texter into the text line says, TD, what do you think about all the money the Titans have? Do you think the Titans will spend the money this offseason?
They better spend the money. I think they will, too, because what you're going to have, you're having a roster churn, right? So you got guys have to get set out, and now guys, and rightfully so. So, yeah.
This reminds me when the Titans had back, and I don't know if the previous CBAs made the salary cap real or if I was just naive in my belief of the salary cap when I was in high school. But the Titans had a cap crunch, and then, out goes Eddie George and that whole era and Steve McNair, and in comes Vince Young. Mm-hmm. And then they immediately went out and they signed Kevin Mawai and David Thornton and Nick Harper and David Givens. And David Givens was an unmitigated disaster, but Kevin Mawai was a huge piece of them being – those are the kind of players I expect them to go out and get this offseason.
Yeah.
TD, great stuff this week. What is on Talking with TD?
We got DJ Bieneme. He's ESPN NFL Nation Texans reporter. Really
Any
good.
shot for CJ Stroud this week?
He said no.
No.
He said no. He's pretty tuned in, pretty well tuned
I
in.
want the showdown.
Yeah, you're not going to have it. And it's probably not going to be Nico Collins, possibly Dalton Schultz, but probably not Nico Collins. Oh, by the way, the injury report came out. Will Anderson didn't practice again. He got his ankle two days in a row. He didn't practice. But really good conversation on Traylon Burks with Chris Sanders. I went on an extended rant about Will Levis and the Hopkins relationship. So definitely check it out.
Talking with TD. Speaking of ESPN, the insiders at ESPN are talking about coaching changes perhaps?
Yeah, inside outsiders.
What they said about Mike Vrabel. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios, where once the sun goes down, it gets a little chilly in here. And,
especially when you're in studio.
I know. I feel bad because I bet you're cold, and I'm making you cold. It is what it is. So it's on ESPN today, and they were talking about coach movements and job openings. And I clicked it thinking that most people assume that Mike Vrabel is returning to the Titans and that there's really no talk about Vrabel or what could happen or anything like that. And they did talk about Mike Vrabel and the Titans. Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler, this is the ESPN Plus paywall. And they said, quote, I think Vrabel is an interesting one to watch, Dan Graziano says. He certainly delivered a strong resume tape Monday night with that victory over the Dolphins. Yeah, the punt return by Eric Guerrer really screamed great coaching. That was me, not Graziano. He was in New England earlier this season during Tennessee's bye week to be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame for his contributions as a player, and I would not be at all shocked if succeeding Belichick were of interest to him. You know what? This is another guy that brings up what happened when Vrabel went there for the Patriots Hall of Fame thing. I don't care about an apology for the Craig Aukerman thing. I think Vrabel owes me an apology for parsing his comments at the Patriots Hall of Fame induction ceremony only because 19 national people have brought it up. But I continue. To be clear, I have no inside information, Graziano writes, to indicate that is or that he wants to leave Tennessee. The Titans want to keep him, and they crave stability with a new stadium project on the horizon. I do not think of stability when I think of the Titans, but again, Vrabel is extremely well regarded in coaching circles, and if he ever wanted to try his hand with another organization, he would be in high demand. Jeremy Fowler, and it should be noted that Fowler has broken a lot of news over the years on the Titans, and I don't really know where his sources are inside the organization. Fowler writes, the sense is Vrabel is certainly welcome back in Tennessee, where it looks like he has a promising quarterback in Will Levis. The roster needs work, and general manager Rand Carthon is finishing his first year at the helm. Will he be building the franchise's long-term vision in Vrabel's image? ? We need more time to crystallize that answer. So, I have a couple of thoughts here. The first one is I love the blanket statements like, yeah, that roster needs a lot of work. Well, no duh. But it needs a lot of work in large part because they didn't do anything good this past offseason. They got a left tackle out there who's a 6th-round draft pick who Trevor says they'd be crazy to start out there next year. And that overshadows the fact that with the 11th pick, they picked a guard who's not playing all that well. I mean, the only good things the Titans did this offseason were DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Hubbard, in my opinion. Like, I disagree with TD about Aziz. The good things they did, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Hubbard, and Nick Folk. And all three of those things occurred after the offseason was pretty much over. So they just say, oh, yeah, that roster, it needs work. No, duh, it needs work. It needed work last year, and they didn't do it. The second thing, when it comes to Vrabel, which is amazing about the fickleness of the NFL. And again, nobody gets in trouble for something that they haven't done, and Vrabel shouldn't get in trouble for something that didn't happen. But what if Will Levis doesn't lead that comeback on Monday night? What if because of Eric Guerrer's fumble, the Titans lose that game? I believe people would have gone nuts about Vrabel. Again, that is pure, unadulterated coaching. To have your punt returner run up to the ball when he is clearly not trying to make a play on it and then decides, I'll try to make a play on it, and you turn the ball over inside the 15-yard line in a tie game with under 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That is coaching. In fact, not only is it coaching, I hate to say this because I don't want to be firing strays at Eric Guerrer, it's common sense. Like, I could do that. You could do that. not touch the ball, we could all do that. And so I keep thinking about that, right? Like, everybody was mad at Vrabel. Everybody was furious. The Titans win this Dolphins game, and it's like, now people aren't as mad. But again, that was just a great comeback by Will Levis is what it was. And so I guess it surprises me a little bit. I'm not surprised at all by the idea that, as Graziano wrote, or Fowler, I can't remember who wrote it, that in coaching circles, Vrabel is considered a great coach. The fact that, again, when every TV game they play, they flash to Vrabel on the sidelines, and it's like, that's Mike Vrabel on the sidelines. He is a great coach. He was a great player in New England, and he is the toughest coach in the league. And that's fine. Because those people don't see what we see every week. They don't see the problems with the coaching staff where Vrabel hires an offensive line coach that doesn't have any NFL experience except for as an assistant on a bad offensive line. He keeps Craig Aukerman screwing around the last 2 years with Todd Downing as the offensive coordinator. Who knows about the defensive coordinator? Like, they don't see those things. We see them. We know them. So I don't have a problem when people are just, oh, Vrabel, he's so great. He's the best. That's fine. But it is the idea that he's not at all culpable for how bad the roster is. He's not at all culpable for the offensive line, for any of that. Every time I hear that, I'm like, well, duh. But again, this echoes the same sentiment that Mike Florio had a couple of weeks ago when he was talking to Rich Eisen. When Rich Eisen, like every national media person in America, was like, oh, there's no way the Titans could fire Mike Vrabel, right? And Florio was like, I don't think it's about Vrabel being fired by the Titans, but it's about whether or not Vrabel wants to return to the Titans. And every time I hear that, it makes me want to throw up. It's as if Mike Vrabel is completely blameless in the crap hole that is the Tennessee Titans right now. Drives me nuts. And I'm glad they won. I think it's great for Levis's confidence. I thought it was incredibly fun to watch, entertaining, good football, all of those things. But it's like, is that one win really like enough to make us happy? Should it be? Nah, I don't know. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. So if it is now, the ball is in Vrabel's court. Then I think the question is, does he believe in the quarterback? That's what I think this comes down to. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. That's right. I absolutely love Hiller, and I'll tell you why I love Hiller. Because they take great care of my home, and they could do the exact same for you. And they are big on our community, which you know is very, very important to me. And I am very glad that they care that much. And they want every kid to experience the joy of Christmas this season, so they're donating $50 in toys to Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase. And they're giving you a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. That's part of Hiller giving away cash for the holidays. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. And these purchases all have great financing options with low monthly payments. Let me just be honest with you. I'm going to tell you, when you do work with Hiller, in my experience, it has been easy. It has been solid communication. It has been honest. It has been good work, and I love it. These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today at happyhiller.com.
How contagious is his energy and fire, and how important is it to maybe have that from that position, especially with the team where your team is?
Well, I think the energy and fire, is critical throughout, the roster and the staff and the organization, and just being able to, to do that. I think that, leadership from the quarterback position is always going to be, important. It's always going to be critical. Their ability to, rally and inspire a football team. Obviously, it's a critical position. So, I think he'll continue to do that in his own particular way.
God bless Vrabel. That guy never changes. It's like Will Levis goes out on Monday Night Football or whatever you want to call that. It's hard for me, by the way, to say, oh, yeah, that was Monday Night Football when most of the country was watching Tommy DeVito and the Giants versus the Packers. But it was technically Monday Night Football. And he goes out on Monday Night Football and leads the comeback that he led. And then Vrabel's like, oh, yeah, everybody's, blah, blah, blah. When all of us are like, yes, we might have a quarterback for the Titans. But if all the insiders are right and the Titans are, Mike, we love you, we want you, we crave stability, and we believe in the commission, even though I don't. If they do, and that's what's going to happen, and the only thing that could change that is if Vrabel didn't want to stay here, then the question is, do you believe in Will Levis? Because if he believes in Will Levis, there would be no reason to go anywhere else. Even if he hated Ran Carthon, there would be no reason to go anywhere else if he believed in Will Levis. Because if you're a coach and you've got a young quarterback and you think he's going to be a franchise guy, that is a 10 to 15-year meal ticket. Just ask Sean Payton, who had one quarterback for all those years in New Orleans. And Vrabel knows that. Now, Vrabel will never tell you what he actually thinks of Levis, and that cut right there is a good example of it. If he thinks like, man, he's a tough kid, but he's never going to be accurate enough to be an elite quarterback, or he's never going to tell you what he thinks until there has to be a decision that has to be made, whenever that is. But I do wonder, because there are going to be jobs that are open, and there's just not enough coaches out there. And so it wouldn't surprise me if a team called up the Titans and said, we'd like to talk to Vrabel. And if you're Vrabel, and it's like, hey, I can go to this team, and I don't think he's going to go to the Patriots, because I think the Patriots are going to go with Gerard Mayo. But if it's let's use them as an example, he's building a team around Will Levis with Amy Adams-Strunk's money. Would you rather that, or two of the three, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Robert Kraft's money? Now, Robert Kraft is traditionally not a big spender, but I can't answer that for him. Trevor was on the show on Tuesday, and I asked Trevor to rank for the next 5 years the quarterbacks in this class and Will Levis. Like, where would Will Levis go in that group? And Trevor said that it would be Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Will Levis, Drake May. If Vrabel feels that way and he has a chance to get one of those two quarterbacks, I could see it. We all know who Vrabel loved, C.J. Stroud, and we all know who Vrabel settled for, Will Levis. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Ellie is up next on Mike Vrabel. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Ellie.
Couple of things. Why would anyone want to follow Belichick, first of all? Second of all, a quarterback's 50-50 when you draft him. You have no idea where you're going to get it. And has Vrabel ever shown that he has anyone who's hired who could develop a quarterback? That's asking for disaster. If New England needs to go with an offensive-minded person who could develop a quarterback, it doesn't make sense. And quality of life in New England's much worse than here. Vrabel has it like gold over here, and he should just enjoy the process and hire some good people around him and stop being a nice guy. You could be a good guy, but not a nice guy, and keep people who are just freeloading on you like Ackerman and the old offense coordinator and stuff like that. You have, seriously, that's what Downing, seriously, it's ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. He has the opportunity to do something. If Levis is the quarterback, he could take us a long way. As you said, he could be his gravy train to possibly a Hall of Fame as a coach. Thank you.
Ellie, good call. I did laugh out loud. when he
I
said
did too, actually.
that he was freeloading Ackerman and Downing or freeloading off of Vrabel. Let me say this. I thought about this today. I believe Amy Adams-Strunk and Mike Vrabel have to have a conversation at the end of the year. No disrespect to Jason Houdeling, but Ian, is it fair to say he's not qualified to be the offensive line coach of the Titans?
No, it is not fair to say that.
Why is it not fair?
It's been not even an entire season.
But he has no NFL experience.
Do you think they have good offensive linemen? Players.
I think Peter Skoronski should be better than he is.
Do you think Brewer is good?
No.
Do you think Dillard is good?
No.
Do you think any of their tackles are good? Hubbard is fine. Other than that.
And Hubbard's a Scarbini.
Okay. Do you like any of their players? And how are you going to blame the coach for this?
But again, Vrabel has to get serious on
he
the offensive
did not
line
pick the coach. Well, Houdeling or however the heck he called his name, he did not pick the players in this offseason.
He collaborated.
Did he? Is
That's
he
what
part
they
of the
say.
collaboration?
They say that the coaches are part of the collaboration.
So to answer your question, no, you cannot say that.
Okay, so I think it is fair. And not only that, I think they've got to go to Mike Munchak and they've got to pay him a buttload of money in order to be the offensive line coach. Say, hey, bygones be bygones. I know that our brother-in-law fired you and you were the head coach here. And again, Munchak's got some serious skins on the wall, and I don't know how Vrabel would feel about that. But we want you to be the offensive line coach and assistant head coach joining Terrell Williams in that capacity, and we want you to coach up the offensive line. And it's going to cost money to do that. It's going to cost some of Vrabel's pride, and it's going to cost some of Amy's money.
Is he a coach anywhere right now?
No, he is a free agent coach.
Okay.
I have not talked to Mike about this, and I don't know Munchak that well. I know him ish. But I think he would be interested for the right amount of money. Everybody has their price. But they got to bring it. Could you imagine the eruption in the street if they announced that Mike Munchak was coming back as offensive line coach?
Not sure he would have been able to do much with this crew.
I think he would have.
You think so?
Gennaro DiNapoli.
Yeah, Aaron Brewer, solid center with Mike Munchak here.
Again, Tom Ackerman, Gennaro DiNapoli, those guys that came out of nowhere, Scarbinis, Eugene Amano, those guys that ended up being good players. I think Munch, and not only that, Floyd used to tell me that if they were going to draft a lineman, they would have him around Munch, and if Munch gave him the thumbs up or the thumbs down, then that was what led them to decide to pick the lineman. So that's another part where, again, his evaluating and collaboration would be important. Scott is up next. Thank you for calling. What's up, Scott?
I just wanted to point something out, and I cheered when we beat the Dolphins Monday. I was happy for a minute. And people are talking about, hey, can we beat the Texans twice? Can we make that last game valuable or mean something? We're talking about all these holes on the roster. Just by winning that Miami game, it cost us the equivalent, depending on whose draft chart you use. We moved from 6 down to 9. That's
5.
the equivalent.
Because when the Giants won, you would have gone up to 5.
Well, it's true. So it cost us the equivalent of a late second-round pick. That's what it cost us to win that game, a late second-round pick. It was basically the Julio Jones trade, just by that win. And every win we get from now is the next one will cost us a third. The one after that will cost us a fourth. I would rather having the 5.
Here's where I disagree with you, Scott.
And the 30.
Here's where I disagree with you. The belief in the quarterback is more important.
I'd rather him play well and feel good and us lose a close one.
It's not the same, Scott. It's not the same as Scott, thank you for your call. It's not the same. Wow, he almost did it is not the same as he did it. There are two totally different things. And I am very cautious about getting excited about young quarterbacks because we've all seen it with Vince Young. We've seen it. Hell, Tommy DeVito is 3-1 as a starter. But Levis has the it factor, and he showed it on Monday. He showed it on Monday that he's got the it factor in him, And that builds confidence for the player. It builds confidence for his teammates. It builds confidence for other players around the league that see that. And I think it builds confidence in the fan base, in the quarterback, which I believe is important. So I would give up, again, that late second round pick that you lost in draft stock. I would give that up to win more games for there to be kind of positivity and excitement surrounding the ball club going into next season and belief in the quarterback. If Tannehill was quarterbacking this, I could get on board with that. But I'm not, because I think that the belief in Levis, both by him and his teammates, is incredibly important, and the fan base. 615-737-1025. More of your phone, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
I can't tell you the confidence this would give Will Levis to finish off this 2-minute drive. I mean, we all had that drive, and for me, I had one against the Jets in a bad rookie season, but I just after that I knew I could do it. I knew I could take the team down against a good team. I mean, the Dolphins, it could be Super Bowl favorites. For him to possibly, bring him back like this and take him down, I mean, I can't tell you what it would do for his confidence.
That was Peyton Manning on the Manning cast. So we had the caller that called in that got mad that the Titans won. I didn't even know that anybody existed. I just thought everybody was doing the, I can't stand those people that are mad that the Titans won. I just thought that was like, I thought these were like imaginary people, right?
Well, it kind of creeped into my brain once they gave up the 2 touchdowns. And they're like, all right, I'm like, okay, they're finding a way to lose this game. They're down 23 or 27-13. There's no time left. And then part of me starts to rationalize the loss. Like, okay, at least it's not going to hurt their draft stock and not going to draft any spots in the draft and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess once they tried to win, part of me was a little bit like, was that the best thing?
Oh,
but
Ian.
But I think, I think I've been convinced.
So one thing that, people always do this, like something happens and they're like, Jared Stillman's already prepared for if they lose, he's going to say, and it's like, you people think way too much about like how I go about coming up with things to talk about. What happens is I watch the game or I hear the press conference, I feel it, I say it. That's it. But I do think there is an element of this where I start to think about as I'm watching the game what I'm going to talk about on the air the next day. And I don't think that's manufacturing a take. I think that is, it's my job to think about what I'm going to say on the show. And when they fumbled the punt, I turned to my dad and I was like, hey, tomorrow at 2:00, what I'm going to say is, this isn't that bad. It's not the end of the world that they lost. That's what I'm going to say. Because, again, the Giants are kicking a field goal. They end up making it. So now you're going to the 5th pick or 4th pick or whatever the pick was, and you're moving up, and it's great. But at the same time, that was a winnable game, but winning and losing doesn't matter at this point as far as the season's concerned. But the confidence does matter for the young quarterback. I had a very prominent NFL agent text me and say, you are 100% correct on the quarterback getting wins. And so if I got a really prominent agent in the NFL, I've got Peyton Manning on the Manning cast saying how important it is for Will Levis to win this game. It's pretty obvious it's important. And TD, when he was in here last hour, TD was talking about it like, dude, those players, when they talk about Levis, you can't fake that. Every team says we believe in the quarterback. I remember Kevin Byard when the Titans benched Mariota in Denver, and they had an open locker room on Monday or whatever, and Byard was, oh, yeah, we always believe in number 8. Number 8's our guy, and we'll stand behind him 100% and blah, blah, blah. And then the next day, they made the switch to Tannehill, and Byard was, yeah, we believe in number 17 just as much. We love blah, blah, blah. Like, that's just saying it, right? That's not feeling we can win with this dude. The way TD is talking about it when he talks to the players, it's like, yeah, no. We win with this dude. That's important. That matters. Wes is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. What's up, Wes?
Hey, Jared. Been a minute since I talked to you, man. How did you know about off the rip I was talking about D-Mace with my question with TD? Anyways, long story short, man, I called in to Chase's show. I guess it was Tuesday morning. I kind of felt the same way about the game. Like, I didn't really know what to expect, but something told me the Titans were going to win by 1 point, as crazy as it sounds. And when we won, I already knew I needed to stay off Twitter for about 24 hours because I couldn't stand to hear what everybody was saying about how terrible of a thing it was that we won that game.
How many people actually said that, though?
Man, to be honest with you, it's up there. I mean, I'm in like 3 or 4 different Titans elite fan groups on social media, and they're still ticked off about it. They are like still.
Hey, what defines an elite? What defines an elite fan group?
their name. That's literally it. It's just they put elite in it, and it makes it sound great. But it's, it is what it is.
You're telling me the Elite Titan fan Facebook group is mad that they won?
Not all of them, but
or is it a lot
majority.
of Elite Titan on Elite Titan fan crime in the Facebook chat?
To be honest, it's hard to defer between the two, but a lot of it, I think, it makes me believe that maybe some of these people were really, really hoping that Will Levis was going to continue to lose so that they would go after another quarterback in this draft. And I don't know why they continue to have.
Hey, let me tell you what now, Wes, thank you for your call. Let me tell you, I said this before the Panther game. I was like, this is a big game for Will Levis now. Because if you lose to the Panthers, you may be picking second overall. And if you're picking second overall, you might pick a quarterback. So I know that everybody's saying, and they won the game. And then they won this game. And now you're in no position to take a quarterback. And so Levis is absolutely going to be the guy going into camp next year and going to be the guy during the season next year. And so, I mean, Levis has done his part to keep himself for sure in the position. That's a real thing. Elite fan group. Elite. Sometimes I can't get over some of this stuff. I laugh so hard. Texture says maybe the Titans should lose every game every year and just try to win the draft. I think the Cleveland Browns tried that. I think they got frustrated after a while. Texture says I will never understand people's attitudes for tanking games for draft choices. That is such a loser mentality. You always share for your team. You always share. I think he meant cheer. You always cheer for your team to win. What a great win. That was this past week. Who cares about the draft pick, the players? The job is to win games. So here's my thing about tanking in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes was not taken by a destitute poor man franchise. The Kansas City Chiefs were the number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs the year before they drafted Patrick Mahomes. They spotted Mahomes, they traded up for Mahomes, and then they put in a plan to develop Mahomes. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals were a poor man franchise that lucked out on getting Joe Burrow. There's multiple ways to skin the cat. And so what I've been thinking about a lot is there is value in picks, but I've been thinking about this a lot when it comes to receiver, right? So the best receivers, remember the 2020 draft class when we were told the 2020 draft class was going to be the best receiver draft class maybe ever? Well, how's Jerry Jeudy doing? How's Henry Ruggs doing? Now, he's in jail, but I don't think he was like a superstar before he went to jail. How are those guys doing? How's Jalen Reagor doing? Now, Justin Jefferson, he was a bad boy, but the Vikings didn't have to lose in order to draft Justin Jefferson. They had to evaluate the right talent. Texter into the text line says the Titans wouldn't have won the Miami game without a great defensive performance. That one, do you think that was a let's trigger Jared text into the text line?
No.
You think that person thinks, oh, man, that defense.
It was a good defensive performance.
It was a good defensive performance because the Dolphins lost Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, is the 3rd most valuable player right now in the NFL. I'd say 4 because Joe Burrow is pretty important. But he's hurt, and Jake Browning's winning all these games. And if Jake Browning keeps winning games, then maybe Burrow isn't as important, but I still think Burrow's that important. And what I mean by this is responsible for a team winning games. Not is a part of a team winning games, but is the reason why. The difference between the driver and the passenger. In the instance of Tyreek Hill, he is the definition of a driver. Like, he drives the Dolphins to victory. Tua, as you know how I feel, does not. The only guys who I think drive their teams to more victories, Lamar Jackson, because I think if they lose Lamar, I think they're nothing. Kansas City and Burrow in Cincinnati. And then Tyreek. Tyreek Hill single-handedly, in my opinion, wins more games for the Dolphins than Trevor Lawrence wins for Jacksonville. He single-handedly wins more games than Dak wins for the Cowboys. By the way, did you see the latest Dak Prescott controversy?
No.
Apparently, Cam Newton on a podcast said Dak Prescott's a game manager, and people are all up in arms about it. I'm sorry, when did we start caring what Cam Newton says?
Yeah, he's been out of the league for a little bit now.
Who cares what Cam Newton thinks? But even then, I mean, look, I think Dak is a product of his surroundings, and that's okay. But I did not think this was great defense. I thought this was Tua got exposed without Tyreek. Boy, I'd love to see Will Levis with Tyreek on one side and DeAndre on the other.
The Titans have historically done an okay job with Tyreek when he was with the Chiefs.
That is true. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your phones. Plus, I watched the Dolphins Hard Knocks, see what they said about the Titans and everything else, and I have a Hard Knocks hot take. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let me see what I need to tell the fine folks out there about, because there is just so much important stuff going on. Let me tell you all right now that tomorrow is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold.
Did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
I didn't. Did it air? I didn't
Yeah.
even know. I didn't know that they turned it around that fast. I'll have to watch it sometime this week.
That was Will Levis yesterday when asked, hey, have you watched Hard Knocks? Because he said he was excited to watch Hard Knocks after the game on Monday night. I bet if Will Levis ends up watching it, I watched it, the Dolphins one. If he actually ends up watching it, I think he's not going to be very happy because, well, quite frankly, to be honest with you, they didn't talk about him at all. Like it had nothing to do with him in that. So I have a hot take. I think the Titans, because of Will Levis, are going to be featured on Hard Knocks next year. So the rules for Hard Knocks are any team can turn down Hard Knocks if they have made the playoffs within the last 2 years or they have a new head coach. And while I have resigned myself to think that Mike Vrabel's probably not going anywhere, even though I need to see some serious staff changes around here. It's already made the first one with the special teams coach. But because if Vrabel's the coach, the Titans are eligible for Hard Knocks. Now, most people don't care about the Titans. You know, the Titans are not an interesting team. But I don't know off the top of my head how many other teams are not going to have new coaches that have not made the playoffs in the last 2 years. And I don't know how many of those teams would be more interesting to put on TV than a team with Will Levis at quarterback and Mike Vrabel as the coach. So I am actually convinced that the Titans are going to be on Hard Knocks next year, and Vrabel is going to hate it. Hate it. But he has nobody to blame except for himself. Like, let's say Dennis Allen keeps his job with the Saints. Who wants to watch that? I'm trying to think, like, who didn't make the playoffs last year that's also not going to make the playoffs this year and doesn't have a new head coach? Arizona? No. So it seems pretty obvious to me that you're likely to see the Titans on Hard Knocks. And when you do favors for the league does favors for you. The 2027 Super Bowl has been awarded to to LA, which I think is a pretty quick turnaround for them to go back to LA. My guess would be the Titans would be in line to probably host in 28 or 29. I would think 29. Because if that's 27 and then the stadium opens in the fall of 27, they'll probably want to get a full season in before they put the Super Bowl in the new stadium. But they will put a Super Bowl in that stadium. Well, you have to do favors for the league in order to do that. That's why the Titans went to London to play the Ravens. That was a favor to the NFL. Give up a home game to go to London against the Ravens. And I think there was even more of a favor that was done in there than was let on, which I'll get into in a second, that I just found out about today. But Hard Knocks is one of the favors. Teams do Hard Knocks in order to get favors from the league. Indianapolis did in-season Hard Knocks. The Combine stays in Indy. Miami, in-season Hard Knocks. Guess what? They'll be getting another Super Bowl in Miami. I'm convinced of it. So I think Vrabel's going to hate it. I think Levis will be very fascinating on television, how people react to him. But I think the Titans are going to be on Hard Knocks, which actually, let me say this, I welcome. You know why? Because I've kind of given up on training camp. I go to training camp.
Spice it up a little bit.
Well, I go to training camp every day during the training camp. I sweat my tush off, and I start, oh, yeah, Chigaconquo, he looks great. And then it's like, nah, it doesn't matter. We thought the defense was going to be elite. And it's like, never mind. Cole says, what if the Patriots keep Belichick and do Hard Knocks? They won't. Don't worry about it. Ben says the Packers. History, young quarterback, large fan base. So aren't the Packers going to make the playoffs?
I don't think that's a guarantee.
What do you think more people around America would want to watch? The Packers on Hard Knocks with Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, or the
Packers.
Titans? You think over Will Levis?
Just strictly numbers, yeah.
I think it might be a Levis thing, man. Like TD was telling me that a story about Levis on ESPN gets freaking clicks.
Green Bay is 6-7, so there's a lot of teams 6-7 right there in the NFC. The Rams, Seattle, New Orleans, Atlanta, Green Bay, all 6-7.
Texter says, I bet Vrabel would leave alone over the idea of having to do Hard Knocks. I agree 100%. 100%. By the way, while I have about a minute and a half before we get to Chad Withrow, I do want to complain about something that I just learned about today. So apparently, the league voted to expand the international games. I don't really like the international games, but then again, I live in America. I don't care to watch football at 8:30 in the morning, and I certainly don't like it when the Titans play an international game. But they're going to go into Brazil and other places and try to make the sport more global, and that's a business thing, and that's fine. There was one team that voted against that, and it was the Chicago Bears. And it's not that the Bears have a problem with playing games away from Soldier Field or whatever it may be. It's that apparently the way it is now is every team can protect 4 home games in any given year that the league cannot send overseas. That will then now be diminished to 2. And the owner of the Bears, the McCaskies, they said that, well, look, fans want, and they made a joke. They said, fans want to see Josh Allen. Fans want to see Jalen Hurts. Fans want to see Lamar Jackson. Fans want to see Tommy DeVito. And everybody laughed when he said that.
Tommy Cutlets.
But I think there is something to this, right? But again, I didn't know the rule. I didn't know that NFL teams could protect 4 games, which leads me to what I am mad about. How could the Titans not have protected the Ravens game this year? Like, who gives a rat's ass if the Falcons or the Panthers game is in London? I don't. I get 4 home games I can protect, and I'm not protecting the Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Why not? I'm thinking about the home schedule right now. Cincinnati, protect that. Ravens, protect that. Is there any other game on the home schedule this year that is worth protecting? Ian?
I don't think so.
Seattle? No.
No.
Why did the Titans not protect the Ravens game?
Carolina?
No.
That's exactly no.
No. Atlanta? No.
No.
Why did the Titans not protect the Ravens game?
Chargers?
No.
You don't want to go out there, but still not worth protecting that one.
Plus, it's more enjoyable to make a team like that travel from L.A. to London.
Yeah.
So it's just, what are you doing? Why are you giving away the Ravens game? I mean, if you're a season ticket holder this year, there has at least been something to cheer for at home. But if you're a season ticket holder, you want to see Lamar Jackson. So it's totally spilt milk because the decision had been made and the game's been played, but I didn't know the rule. And so now that I do, I'm very angry about it. I think it's a total slap in the face to the fans. Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. Predators game tomorrow is early, so we're off early. Chad Withrow from Outkick set to join us momentarily. So a bunch of people are theorizing in the text line the reason why the Titans did not protect the Ravens game. Again, the old rule was that you could protect 4 home games in a given season. And the Titans chose not to protect the Ravens game, so the Titan ticket holders lost out on Lamar Jackson, and they got to see Carolina instead. And a lot of people are theorizing in the text line that Vrabel wanted to protect the 3 division games. And not only did Vrabel want to protect the 3 division games, but then also they probably just picked the Bengals game as the other game to pick. Now, somebody told me that apparently while games can be protected, there's a function of how recently other teams have been overseas, which maybe knocks out some teams as options. All I want to know is this. Did the Titans have the chance to bring Lamar Jackson to town and veto it? Because I could totally see Vrabel being like, no, we need to play the division games at home and give us the best chance to win the division games. I could totally see that. And we'll never know, or maybe we will down the road one day. But I am just fascinated by a rule that I didn't even know existed until like 1:45 today, when I saw that the Bears got up there and they were the one team to vote against expanding the international games. Everybody thinks that. Here's the one thing I will say, though. For everybody's theory about Vrabel wanting to protect the divisional games, isn't that something like the owner can overrule? Like where the owner can say, hey, I know you want the division games. I get it, but no, we're going to play the Texans in London, and we're going to get to host against the Ravens at home in Nashville. Just saying. I mean, I don't know how much the NFL's like, hey, no, we want this game, and we're going to take it. That I couldn't tell you. And it does feel like the Titans are doing an awful lot of favors for the NFL. Now, there's certain things that have also been theorized, but I guess that's a different discussion for a different day. So I'm just saying that when I learned that rule today, I was at least a little disappointed. Now, Chad Withrow is going to join us from Outkick. I'm very, very excited about this because, as we all know, Chad has been a Will Levis hater. And it's not one of these things where I want to be like, what do you think now? But I almost want to say, as somebody who didn't like Will Levis, as somebody who didn't believe in Will Levis because he was at Kentucky and everything else, as somebody who all those things, did Monday night flip the switch? Was Monday night, Rick Spielman, the former general manager of the Vikings, has a podcast on CBS. And on his podcast, he said, and he was an anti-Levis guy, he said on his podcast that was the moment where he was like, okay, the Titans now are going into the future with Will Levis as their quarterback. And I wonder if, again, and I love Chad, but I feel like there's maybe a certain level of Tennessee bias into this. But I wonder if after Monday night's game, if he is able to say, yes, I can roll now with Will Levis into the future. One texter says the owner was not going to give up the chance to stick it to the Texans and wear the throwbacks at home. You would, again, remember the Texans weren't supposed to be good going into the season? You would stick it to your fans by doing that? Saying, no, you're not going to have Lamar Jackson? Come on now. Chad Withrow joins us now from Outkick. Chad, let's start here. Was Monday night enough for you to say, I'm in on Will Levis?
No, I'm in on Will Levis as a guy that needs to be the option for next year based on what I saw Monday night. But we saw a lot of good, but we saw some of the bad with Will Levis too. Decision-making, pick six, the bad pitch to Derrick Henry. I mean, what's remarkable about that game, Jared, is they spotted the Dolphins 21 points and still won the game. They still came back and took it. And it's not like the Dolphins had a bunch of turnovers and stupid things to give them the game back. The Titans took it. I think that was what was most impressive. Will Levis looked great in the 2-minute offense, both times. When he got going fast, I thought he looked terrific. I've seen enough with his talent to where I still feel good about the Titans moving into the offseason with him as the option at quarterback, which really does help everything with that team and what they can do flexibility-wise around him. But no, to say that I'm sold on a guy who's started this few games as being, the guy long-term, not quite yet, but he's got the arm talent to make it happen. He's just got to clean up what he had a problem with at Kentucky and what he's had a problem with at times this season, decision-making.
So I think it's fascinating you say that, because you were the first person to use the comparison, and you were being bold when you said this, but the comparison to Brett Favre. And when it comes to Levis, I see one of two things. Either Levis cleans up the mistakes after learning from them and film sessions and more experience, and he learns from his mistakes, and we get more good than bad, and he becomes a really, really great quarterback. Or maybe he could be like one of these guys like Brett Favre where, you know what, he's going to throw it to the other team. You just have to hope that, like Monday night, he can make up for it and get you one more point. What do you make of that kind of Favre-like mentality that it does feel like Levis has?
I think it's tough to make work right now if you're going into every game, if you're going to be one of the leaders in the league in interceptions every year, similar to Brett Favre. I don't know that works. And again, I am going on a limb when I say Brett Favre because he had a Hall of Fame career, right? And I see that more just from the guy's got an absolute howitzer attached to his right shoulder, right? I mean, he makes throws that they're wild throws left and right. And he made a few in that game, the no-look throw to DeAndre Hopkins for the touchdown, the standing where he's not even stepping into it and throwing off his back foot deep down the field for a perfect drop-in-the-bucket throw. He's got throws like that similar to Favre, where Favre had such arm talent. But I think with Favre, I've heard Derrick Mason talk about this on your station too. Favre got into a cowboy gunslinger mentality where he was always trying to fit it into the tightest window and make a big play happen. I think with Will Levis, I agree with Derrick Mason when he says it's the situation around him that's causing some bad habits and to him to get into some bad spots because of the offensive line, because of a lack of playmakers or whatever it may be. I think that's part of it with him, is that's forcing him into some bad habits that I don't want to see continue. So if he's going to get to be the Brett Favre that's a Hall of Fame quarterback because he can utilize that arm talent, I think he needs to get away from some of those bad habits that we've seen at times this season.
I will say one thing that does differentiate him from Favre is that he's a lot smarter than Favre. And I buy the S2 test. Like, I know the context around the CJ Stroud score that was purposely left out in the leak. And I actually think that the leak probably came from the Titans. But I understand, like, the leak of the CJ Stroud score. I think that that does factor in processing and things like that. And Levis scored really high on that. I think Levis is really, I think he's smart. And I just think it's just cleaning up little things and he'll be okay. But I also caution myself and others about getting too excited about a young quarterback, Chad.
Yeah, let me give you a comp on Will Levis that's not Brett Favre. I think Baker Mayfield's really smart too. I think he's an intelligent guy, right? I think he's football smart. I see some Baker Mayfield in Will Levis as well. Baker Mayfield was a guy who didn't care about his body and was going to lower his shoulder, and he was going to dive for extra yards, and it got him in trouble injury-wise. Will Levis is bigger than Baker Mayfield, so that's good news for his durability, but he's got some of that spark to him also, and that wild man to him. I mean, watch Will Levis after the touchdown where he's going crazy, looking all yoked up, walking to the sideline, right? That looked like Baker Mayfield to me. That looked like a response you would have seen from him in his first couple of years with the Cleveland Browns. So I can also see a little bit of that. Look, I don't know that he's football smarter than a lot of the quarterbacks that came out. I mean, C.J. Stroud had a terrible S2 score. C.J. Stroud looks pretty good and looks like he knows football also, and I don't think he sounds like someone who's dumb. I don't know that the S2 score tells us much.
So like I said about Stroud, though, Chad, like there is some serious lacked context about that Stroud, that bad score. And I think it got leaked on purpose. And I think it was the Titans that leaked it. And I think that they did that to make Stroud look bad.
Yeah, but look, what's the lack context? Because if we're gonna look at Will Levis's S2 score and say he's smart, but look at CJ Stroud's, and I don't. What is the lack of context I'm missing?
I'll just say it like this: if I was taking a math test and I was frustrated and I didn't want to do it, and I answered 5 of the questions and then I walked out of the math test, chances are I wouldn't get a very good grade on it, would I?
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I don't think Will Levis is dumb, right? I mean, I think you can listen to someone speak an interview,
sure,
and you can tell some of that. And I think he's a smart guy. I've never ever thought that he was stupid or anything like that. I think he's a pretty intelligent guy. I think he knows ball. I think he's wanting to be really good, and I do think that the snub of the draft, where he thought he was going to be top 5 and wasn't, has motivated him. Again, I'm not going to jump all in off the high dive into the deep end of the pool and say he's the franchise guy that's a superstar in the league for years to come. But I've seen enough good from Will Levis to say the Titans are in a good spot this offseason in knowing they have the guy who's going to be their starting quarterback next season. And now they can go start this rebuild around him. And they can focus on other positions in the draft. They can focus on other positions in free agency and hopefully do a better job than they did this past year with Rand Carthon in decision-making about building this roster for this season. Let's hope this offseason is more productive for 2024.
What did you think of the game as a whole?
I thought it was insane because I think the Dolphins are really good. I thought Tua, I know you're way down on Tua and always have been.
Hate him.
I thought he was terrible in that game. I've seen Tua do a lot of good things for this Dolphins offense. He looked like a baby giraffe trying to drop back. It was weird. Like he looked like – I talked about this with John Fulkerson for Tennessee in basketball. Like there were times where he looked like he couldn't stay on his feet and just played like a baby giraffe. That's the way Tua looked trying to scramble in that game. The first fumble, as they're going into the end zone, a couple of sacks where he couldn't stay on his feet. I just thought it was a terrible performance by him. But again, I'll go back to what I said before. The Tennessee Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL, spotted what should be one of the best teams in the NFL, 21 points on the road with the Dolphins at home, and the Titans still found a way to win after making those critical mistakes and giving them 21 points. They won the football game with an offense that has done nothing recently. That's remarkable to me. So one word to sum up that football game, insane.
Wild. Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. We've got the hot seat with Chad. We'll do that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chad Withrow is with us on the program. First, let me give something away while I have Chad here on the program. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll be going to the Railbird Festival, a pair of passes, a celebration of music, bourbon, and equine experiences at the Red Mile in downtown Lexington, Saturday, June 1st and Sunday, June 2nd with Noah Kahn, Turnpike, Troubadours, Chris Stapleton, Hosiers, and many more. Visit railbirdfest.com for more info and to purchase tickets. Chad, are you ready for the hot seat?
I am ready, Jared. Let's do it. Fire away.
Okay, number 1. Are the Titans better off with Will Levis and the assets that they didn't trade on draft night for C.J. Stroud than they would have been had they acquired Stroud on draft night?
Remind me, what were the assets, or give me an approximation of what those assets would have been that would have traded up?
I assume that it would have been like 2 firsts and probably 2 seconds. It would have been a lot.
Yeah, given that, from what I've seen, they're better off with Will Levis than having given up all of that, because that would have been a motherload of draft picks that they badly need. So I'm going to say right now, and I'm a little surprised I'm saying this, better off with Will Levis given the way that he's played and he's looked so far.
I actually agree with that. Again, it's like the Garth Brooks song about God's greatest gifts. And so
unanswered prayers.
I think that there may be we may look at this 6 years from now when C.J. Stroud's winning his 3rd MVP and I feel the same way, but perhaps that could be the case. Okay.
I will be the first to admit that I was dead wrong if this guy goes on to be a great quarterback for the Titans. And I hope that's the case. And I've seen enough to know that they're going to go in the offseason with him as the plan. And that's good enough for me right now. I'm not going to make any long-term proclamations yet, but the fact that he's going into the offseason as the guy for the Titans, that really helps the Titans out.
Did Monday night prove that Tyreek Hill is an MVP candidate, and which players are more responsible for their team winning games than Tyreek Hill is for the Dolphins?
I think he was an MVP candidate before that game. I think what that game proves is his value to that Dolphins offense and how much they do with him and how much attention he demands from the opposing defense and how that affects games also. So, yeah, look, I think it definitely helps his case given what happened to the Dolphins with him out. But I thought he should have been an MVP candidate before. Now, he won't win it. He'll win offensive MVP or offensive player of the year because we know that only quarterbacks apparently can win MVP. But I thought he was a good candidate before that.
Who should the Patriots have on their list to replace Bill Belichick?
So if you're going to go with the Patriot way and you're going to elevate, it's Gerard Mayo. He's the only one that makes sense that's on staff that hasn't been a complete failure as an NFL head coach. Because the other candidates would be Josh McDaniels, Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia. And those guys have fallen out of favor because of bad stints as NFL head coaches.
Don't forget Joe Judge.
Joe Judge, another guy who's didn't do well, right? So, look, if you're going for the untapped resource of this guy could be great, but we don't know because he's never done it, I think it's Gerard Mayo. Jared, I think if you're going to go big or go home and you're going to want to go in a different direction, but someone with a big personality that's going to know exactly what they're going to want to do, you go hire Jim Harbaugh as the next Patriots head coach. So that would be my outside the family name. If you're staying in the family, going with what you know, I think it's Gerard Mayo.
Which potential job opening in the NFL makes the most sense to hire Belichick?
Oh, man. See, to me, that comes down to what would Belichick want? I think what Belichick wants, if he's going by what he's seen in the last few years without Tom Brady, then what he knows is that he's got to have a great quarterback to be successful because he's going to run the defense and he needs a quarterback that can help run the offense and that's talented enough to do it. And that's what he had with Tom Brady. So I'm going to go with the Chargers because of Justin Herbert as the best spot and maybe the most likely for Bill Belichick. But if he's going to go and have one more stint of success, I think that's the most likely landing spot for him to do it because he's got that quarterback in place.
Do you think the Chargers would want to hire Bill?
I don't know. I don't know what the Chargers want. I was asked this week, is Brandon Staley going to get fired if they lose to the Raiders? And I'm thinking, how does he have a job now? I don't know why he hasn't already been fired. So my answer would be no. I think they're going to wait till the end of the year. I don't think there's anything Brandon Staley can do in this season that's going to get him fired before the end of the season. So, Black Monday is going to come in the NFL, and he's going to get fired the day after the season ends, and that's how it's going to end for him. But I don't know. The Chargers are a tough organization to figure out where their head's at times. But, look, you could do a lot worse than Bill Belichick if you wanted to pair him with Justin Herbert. So give me that.
What would the New England Patriots have to offer you if you own the Titans in order to secure Mike Vrabel as their next head coach?
Oh, gosh. I'm so bad with cost of trades and all of that. What did Sean Payton get?
A first, a second, and I think New Orleans sent a third back.
Probably that, but I just don't know that makes sense, really, for either side right now. Vrabel just got a Mike Vrabel win on Monday night, so I'm not trying to trade him away because we forget that Vrabel does seem to pull one or two of those out a year where backs against the wall, don't think they can do anything, and he comes up with a great defensive plan and shocks everybody. He did that against the Dolphins. But if I've got to do it, I'm going with at least whatever was given up to get Sean Payton.
Did the Titans make a mistake by drafting Peter Skoronski ahead of wide receivers Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Zay Flowers?
Yes, because Peter Skoronski is playing guard, and I just don't like drafting guard in that spot. If they had a really good tackle they took there, and he was playing tackle currently, then maybe I'd go that it's okay. And I think Skoronski's going to be fine, but give me a difference maker at receiver, what this team badly needs. Because, I'm forgetting that Treylon Burks is on the team at times. And that was the guy who was supposed to be the A.J. Brown replacement. So they could use one of those receivers.
Twitter's going to be mad at you talking about a guard. Twitter thinks guard is as important as quarterback, and apparently so do the Titans. C.J. Stroud was injured with 6:43 to go on Sunday versus the Jets. They were already down 24-6 in a game without Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Dalton Schultz. Stroud was 10 of 23 for 91 yards and a quarterback rating of 54.8. Woof. How much of Stroud's success and Bryce Young's failings are about them, and how much are about the players around them?
I think it's a lot about the players around them and a lot about the coaching around them. Bryce Young has looked better since Frank Reich got fired. Mm-hmm. So I think that's coaching. But found a pretty good spot with supporting cast, with support with the coaching staff. He's got a really good offensive coordinator. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think on Sunday, we see this in the NFL. He ran up against a really good defense. The Jets have had a good defense throughout the year, very talented on that side. The unexplainable part to me is how Zach Wilson gets benched and then comes back and looks like a competent NFL quarterback.
In the second half, they had 0 points at halftime. It was 0-0 at halftime, and Zach Wilson still found a way to win AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
But the fact that he got hot and put up those numbers in a half of football, I did not see that coming at any point this season. That's the biggest shock to me. The Texans having a down week and having all that happen against a good defense in bad conditions, that does not surprise me that much. But between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, I think, honestly, it's not – in some cases, it's not as much about them and much more about the supporting cast. But you still got to go out there and do it. Bryce Young has not done it yet. C.J. Stroud has.
How legit is Shohei Ohtani's Dodgers contract, and should the Dodgers be allowed to defer that much money into the future?
Absolutely not. It's completely, to me, a farce. And I know it's allowed. Smart of the Dodgers, smart of Ohtani, competitive advantage-wise, very smart of them to do this. I know they've done it with Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts also. It's within the rules, so they're well within their right to do it. I just smell a rat when things like this happen because it should not be allowed. This should be collectively bargained out of Major League Baseball. It's ridiculous that a team can get a $70 million a year guy for $2 million and not pay him until a decade from now when he's no longer playing. That's just ridiculous. It should not be allowed. I don't like it. Smart of the Dodgers to do it because it's within the rules, but I hate it and I wish it was outlawed.
My thing is, and the competitive balance tax that they have in baseball has some real teeth to it. And this apparently lowers the amount of money that they're technically spending on Ohtani. And I'm like, I think the Dodgers should be charged competitively, full price. You want to pay him 50 years from now, that's your business. But I think as far as the league is concerned, I think that you should be charged the full amount. That's what pisses me off about this.
Yeah, and it's look, the questions about baseball have always been, well, it's the haves, the have-nots, and if you don't have all the money, you can't win. That's been debunked a bit in recent years with teams with not high payrolls doing very well.
Sure.
Right? We've seen it time and time again. That's good for the game. But if the Dodgers reel off 3 or 4 World Series titles in the next 5 or 6 years, which they could do, but baseball's a funny sport. You know, they may not win a single one. If that starts happening, then we revert back to everyone pointing to these contracts and these deferred payments with their salaries and start saying, aha, baseball has run amok again. It's run afoul of what is right and what is fair in sports. And that's not where the game needs to be.
What did you think of the Monday Night Football doubleheader, and do you like Monday Night Football doubleheaders?
It's not a doubleheader. Like, it's 2 games at once. So I like doubleheaders. I like a game starting at 6 o'clock Central and a game starting at 9 o'clock Central or 8:30, where you have a little bit of crossover, but not as much. I don't understand why you put 2 games on at the same time simultaneously on a Monday night. I don't get that from a television standpoint. I know both games are going to do well and did well, but I'd rather be a true doubleheader. To your question, I'd rather go back to what they did for years with that opening Monday Night Football game, where you have an East Coast game, West Coast game, and it's a back-to-back doubleheader. I like that far better than putting both games on at the same time. But both games were great, so that's good news.
I'll tell you what drove me crazy when they did the little split screen. That drove me nuts. If I wanted to watch the Giants game, I'd turn on the Giants game, and I thought the JV broadcast crew was terrible on Monday Night Football.
Don't get me started on the split screen stuff, because last I checked, all the money is going to the Disney Corporation because they have both games. So know that if someone is tuned into a certain channel to watch a game, they likely want to watch that game and not the other one. And they also probably know where to find that other game. I like the Scott Van Pelt updates coming back from break. That's fine, of the other game going on. But if I've turned to a channel to watch a game, I want to watch that game. And you're getting all of the money and all of the eyeballs either way. So stop putting it on split screens, especially when you know both channels are owned by Disney. All the money's going to the same place. I hated that part of it.
Yeah, I didn't mind the SVP break-ins. That reminded me of, let's send it to JB in New York. I'm fine with that. But the other stuff. Last one. The Louisville basketball team dropped a game last night. They're terrible. They dropped a game last night to 3-7 Arkansas State, where they were down by 20 in the last 3 minutes. Jared, that's me, I think I could coach the Louisville basketball team better than Kenny Payne has, who has won, I think, 6 games across 2 seasons. Could I coach the basketball team better than Kenny Payne?
I think most humans on this planet could, and certainly you could. Here's the thing with Kenny Payne and what I keep hearing about him. Really nice guy. Really nice guy. People want to see good things happen for him. He's such a nice guy. I think that Louisville needs to do the nice and humane thing to him and put him out of his misery and fire him, and put your fans out of this misery and fire him, because it's not just the losing. It's the player that doesn't have the right tights that sits out for a half. It's the university putting out a statement of a guy entering the transfer portal and the dude posting on X or Twitter or whatever that he's not, in fact, in the transfer portal. It's Kenny Payne not being able to answer whether or not he's really on the team. Oh, he's on the team, but he was in the stands with the fans during the game. But I can't talk about what he's doing, but he's still a part of this team, and he's not in trouble. None of it makes sense. He has no control over the program. Everything is run amok. Do what is right and do the nice thing, and mercy fire this guy once and for all. And heck, hire Jared Stillman if you want. I'm sure you probably could do a better job.
I am convinced, just based off of my own common sense, that I think I could coach a team better. And I'm not somebody who's like, I could do better than the doctor or anything like that. I get people all the time that say they can host my show better than me, and I'm like, okay, good luck. But I really do think I could coach a basketball team better. It's so bad. I think I could do that. Chad Withrow from Outkick, as always, joining us on the program. Chad, thanks for moving up a day. Appreciate it. Great stuff.
No problem. Always fun. Thank you.
Yep, Chad Withrow from Outkick joining us. Do you think I could coach the Louisville basketball team better, Ian? I feel like
Probably not, no.
it's so bad. It's so bad. Again, we had a game like yesterday. The school, the university, the athletic department released a statement at like 2:00 saying that Johnny Joe wasn't going to be on the team anymore because he had entered the transfer portal. We wish him the best. He tweeted out and was like, yeah, that's not true. So then they had to issue another statement saying, well, Johnny Joe didn't actually enter the transfer portal, but he's not on the team anymore. And then the coach
Sounds
after
like
the game was
some miscommunication somewhere.
Then the coach was asked after the game what happened. He's like, we put out a statement. You put out 2 statements.
Refer to the statement, please.
I could coach a basketball team better. Anybody could probably coach the basketball team better. My theory is just my knowledge, my people skills, and common sense, I think would allow me to be able to coach a basketball team better. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. Twice daily. 12 days of Christmas are back at Twice Daily. Get ready for 12 days of discounts and freebies, plus contests to win great prizes and gift cards too. Download the app and register today. And again, you know it's always important to download the Twice Daily app and join the loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily, where you'll earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. Made to order sandwiches, bakery, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, fresh items made to go, hot drink, cold drink, you name it. And of course, stop by the beer cave to unwind with a cold one. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. And if the Titans score any points in the last 2 minutes of either half, there is a free half sub the next day for all loyalty members through the app. So this would be on Monday if they score in the last 2 minutes on Sunday. That's Twice Daily, fresh all day. Predators are on the road tomorrow. They'll take on Carolina. Early start time for us. Hal Gill will be on the radio call. He joins us now on the program. Hal, the Predators just keep on winning. I asked Barry the other day, Barry Trotz, I said, are you surprised by how well the team has performed so far in kind of the first year of a rebuild, reset, reload, re-something? And at first he said yes, but then talked about all the good things that he knew about his team. Are you surprised at how good this hockey team's playing right now?
Yeah, I think everyone, it's like a healthy surprise. You know what, you're looking at it, and I always put myself in, whoever says whatever they're saying, I put myself in Barry Trotz's shoes. Like, okay, I'm going to plan to have a championship team by 3 years, and is this the right time to be this good? You know, like, do we want to be this good? Like, and I think. You know, as a Preds fan, I'm looking at it going, this is awesome. We're winning games and finding ways to win games, whether it's our top line stepping up or Juice being a beast like he was the other night. Like, these guys are finding ways to make it happen. So a lot of exciting games, but, you know, it's interesting. In Barry's head, is he thinking, okay, do I want to make moves moving forward to give us a chance to make the playoffs and have some success this year, or do I want to just sit pat? You know, there's a lot of decisions, and I think that's the fun part for the players. If I was a player, I'd be looking at it going, I want to make my GM's life miserable by throwing a curve at them and saying, hey, we're going to be better than you thought.
Go back to the game the other night and the game on Saturday at Toronto, where the team, it just felt like, got completely outshot. The puck was in their own end for a lot of the time, and UC Soros, you know, bailed them out the other night. I also felt like, you know, again, Kevin Lankinen kept them in the game at Toronto. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, should I be concerned by that, even though they're winning? And we know that, you know, for the people that don't understand that Soros is a slow starter, he is absolutely a slow starter. But they were also kind of outplayed in Montreal, too. Should I be a little worried about that?
Well, I don't know if they were outplayed in Montreal. I think they had a bunch of scoring chances that they didn't finish on. And then, you know, once they got a 2-goal lead, I think Montreal was like, whatever. Like, they have nothing to worry about. They're a bunch of young kids going out and playing. So I think they did outplay. I like their response after Toronto, where they looked they looked fatigued, a little sloppy. I feel like the ice was bad, and there's a lot of excuses that you could throw at it, but they just weren't themselves. That wasn't their game, and they said that after. I like that. Couple guys came out and said, that's not our game. That's not who we are. And they turned it around in a back-to-back and proved that they're a better team and got the win in Montreal. But, you know, the goaltending thing is always tough because it is the ultimate Band-Aid, right? I mean, it's such a fine line between winning and losing. Even the best team can lose to a bad team with a good goaltender. But there's also the other side, and everyone's seen it, where, you know, ask Edmonton. At the beginning of the season, they had some bad goaltending, and they just lost games, and they lost momentum, and they lost confidence, and it snowballs. And so as long as Juice is here, as long as Lankinen is coming in and playing well in the backup, like, this team can win. And so I think you have to, you know, take it with a grain of salt at times as a GM, as a coach, as a player. You have to realize who's back there, but you also have to appreciate the fact that you have a chance to win. And I think we saw that against Philadelphia. Like, hey, that should have been over. Like, you know, that was a tough game, and Juice kept them in it and gave them a chance to win, and they pulled it off.
Hal Gill is presented by Duncan. What do we make of the 2 Eastern Conference games upcoming? We got Carolina tomorrow and then Washington at home on Saturday. Both teams are kind of, as far as the playoffs are concerned, you know, kind of right there towards the Eastern Conference cut line-ish. What do we make of it?
Yeah, but you know what? I should have mentioned it while I was talking about Philadelphia is good, man. They were fast. They play hard. And that's kind of the new edge team. I feel like John Tortorella has taken that team and turned it around. They play a fast, hard game. It's not just the shot blocking, old torch, tough team. They played fast, and so I think you're coming into Carolina. That's going to be a hard game. These guys shoot a lot. Brendan Moore has them playing a system that is going to attack, and they'll shoot from everywhere and then attack. It's a hard team to play against. So this is going to be a huge test. And then Washington, I think, is playing a similar game to what Philadelphia plays, and so this is going to be a challenge in a back-to-back where these guys haven't had much of a break. They haven't had much practice time. I'm sure they were so excited to have a day off after that game and kind of relax a little bit, get a practice today, get on the road, and be ready to go. But this is going to be a challenge. And, I think when we're looking at this team, like I said before, every day is a chance to try to prove yourself, prove your worth. The veterans are saying, hey, we're a legit team. We deserve to be in the mix. And young guys are saying, hey, I'm a legit player. I deserve to be in the league. And so if you put that mix together and they keep proving themselves, then this could be a great weekend. It also could be humbling for them. So I'm excited to see how they compete on this back-to-back because it's two really tough challenges in kind of different ways.
So tomorrow night is not a Bally Sports game. Is that correct? It's a ESPN
right.
Plus. So if
always on 102.5.
That's
Pete's
exactly
going to be ready to go.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Was if you don't have ESPN Plus tomorrow, 6:30, Predators and Hurricanes right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hal Gill will be with, of course, the voice of the Predators, Pete Weber. Hal, enjoy the quick trip to Carolina and back. We'll see you on Saturday night.
Jared, I just want you to know that I tore myself away from a happy hour. We have a sponsor trip here, and we're taking care of some Smashville faithful on this road trip. And I stepped away from a happy hour for you, and I want you to know that.
That means
That's
so
how
much.
I appreciate you.
You know what happened?
You know nothing. I don't appreciate many things other than a happy hour. Or more than a happy hour, but I appreciate you. So I took some time.
Here's what I think happened, Hal. I think that you went to the sponsors and you said, hey, guys, I got to step out for a little bit. I'm going on Jared Stillman's show. And they were like, you're going on Jared Stillman's show? That is so cool.
Oh, no. They said, why?
That is so
cool. Why would you do that to yourself?
I bet your son's like, Dad, it's so cool. It didn't matter to me that you played in the NHL for 15 years. It is so cool that you go on Jared Stillman's
17,
program.
Jared.
17 years and never made $700 million like Shohei Ohtani does. Hal Gill is presented by Duncan. Hal, great stuff.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jared. I appreciate it. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. It is all my pleasure to have Hal on this program. Trouble right there. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Stillman and Company. We roll along. 102.5, 106 through The Game.
So will Charles or Tim or Mike make clear that when you're running with the ball to maybe try to slide a little bit more?
Yeah, no, it's been a point of emphasis going back to even starting last week. Obviously, needed to take the coaching points a little better, but I need to make sure that I know that I'm not putting my body in harm's way. Because my best ability is my availability, and I have to know that.
There you go. That was Will Levis. I do have kind of a hot take, and maybe I should save this for Fireball Hot Take Friday. But I started the show today talking about how I watched the Hard Knocks of the Miami Dolphins and how they just talked about Derrick Henry. And it's like, do you not see how important it is that Will Levis has Derrick Henry? Because all these other teams are keying on Derrick Henry and not Will Levis. And I do wonder, though, in the era we're living in, it does feel like the backup quarterback is more important. The last era was you get Joe Burrow and then you put some Scarbini behind him because you're not going to spend any money. And if you lose, you lose. Screw it. Who cares? But now there are so many backup quarterbacks playing in the NFL. Tonight we have Thursday Night Football. Aiden O'Connell versus Easton Stick. Are we sure that the Titans shouldn't at least consider the idea of bringing Tannehill back next year to back up Levis? Now, Tannehill would have to go out into free agency and see if there's a starting job available. And if there's not a starting job, then he'd have to take significantly less money, $10 million or something like that, to be the backup. But the way Levis is getting his clock cleaned out there and the way quarterbacks are dropping like flies in the NFL, and we saw how important Tyler Huntley was down the stretch for the Ravens, should you not at least think about it? Oh, just something to consider. I'm also kind of depressed because last night we didn't have any good sports on, and tonight, I'll probably watch a Thursday night game.
It's a terrible game.
I wish we had some hockey tonight. We got to wait till tomorrow for that. That's it for us, Stillman and Company. We're out of here. ESPN Radio's up next. We will see you all tomorrow at 2.